for 2 days since they lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center on Tuesday, September 10th. That adds up to about 15 to 16 orbits around the Earth every single day and counting.
On day 2 of the mission, as you can see there on your screen, Dragon fired its forward Draco bulkhead thrusters to send the spacecraft soaring higher than any Dragon mission to date, reaching the highest Earth orbit ever flown. The crew topped out at more than 1,400 kilometers, breaking the record set by Gemini 11 a half-century ago when that spacecraft reached 1,373 kilometers. This was also the farthest from Earth for a crewed spacecraft since the last Apollo lunar mission in 1972.
Since that time, Dragon has gradually lowered its apogee, or the highest point in its orbit, as the crew got ready for the spacewalk today. They started to don or put on their EVA suits just a little bit of time ago, and they've been undergoing a process called pre-breathing, where the atmospheric pressure inside Dragon is slowly decreased and oxygen is increased to prepare their bodies for the EVA suit environment. We're going to dive more into the operations of the spacewalk a little bit later, and we're going to be hearing in live communications with the crew throughout, so be sure to listen in as those happen.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting to hear that. And as far as views goes, we'll have Dragon's regular internal cameras that we have seen before, and up to 3 external cameras, one aimed at the hatch, kind of like what you see there. One on Dragon's nose cone, which actually is the one that's there. That's the camera on the nose cone. And one on the newest piece of hardware that you see there in that view. That is the Skywalker, which we will come back to shortly. We may also have helmet cameras that will give us a first-person view from the crew, which will be incredible. Now, since we are not using Starlink to enable views today, there will be moments of expected loss of signal due to ground station coverage. So those views may be interrupted from time to time, but generally we expect to get some great shots today.
And as of right now, we're less than an hour away from the start of the EVA. For now, though, let's learn a little bit more about the mission and our crew. The Polaris program is a first-of-its-kind effort to rapidly advance human spaceflight capabilities while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes down here on Earth. Today's goal is to demonstrate critical operational capabilities that are going to serve as those building blocks to help further human space exploration. Polaris Dawn mission has a lot of first-time objectives, so the Polaris program chose a crew of experts who know each other so they can tackle this mission's challenges as a team.
First up, Mission Commander Jared Rook-Isaacman also served as the commander of Inspiration 4, the world's first all-civilian mission to space. Jared holds several world records, including 2 speed-around-the-world flights in 2008 and 2009 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He has flown in over 100 air shows as part of the Black Diamond Jet team, dedicating every performance to charitable causes. In 2011, Jared co-founded what would become the world's largest private air force, Draken International, and that trains pilots for the U.S. Armed Forces. In addition to his role as CEO of Shift 4, Jared is an accomplished pilot and astronaut with over 7,000 flight hours.
Next up, mission pilot Scott Kid Poteet, who served as the mission director of Inspiration 4, and he goes by the nickname Kid, which is also his call sign. He's a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. Kid served for 20 years in roles that included commander of the 64th Aggressor Squadron, Thunderbird No. 4 demonstration pilot, U.S. Air Force Weapons School graduate, operational test and evaluation pilot, and flight examiner. He's a command pilot with over 3,200 flying hours, logged over 400 hours of combat time, and following his Air Force career, Kid served in various roles, including Vice President of Strategy at Shift 4.
Mission Specialist Sarah Cooper-Gillis is a lead space operations engineer here at SpaceX, and she's responsible for overseeing our astronaut training program. She helped prepare NASA astronauts for the Demo 2 and Crew 1 missions, and most recently directly trained the Inspiration 4 astronauts. Sarah is an experienced mission control operator who has supported real-time operations for Dragon's cargo resupply missions to and from the International Space Station as navigation officer and as a crew communicator for Dragon's human spaceflight missions. In 2015, while studying at the University of Colorado Boulder, Sarah started an internship at SpaceX before moving into the astronaut training program full-time.
And capping off the Polaris Dawn crew, mission specialist and medical officer Anna Walker-Menon, who serves as a lead space operations engineer here at SpaceX, where she manages the development of crew operations and works in mission control as both a mission director and crew communicator. During her time at SpaceX, Anna has led the implementation of Dragon's crew capabilities and developed critical operational responses to vehicle emergencies. Prior to SpaceX, Anna worked for 7 years at NASA as a biomedical flight controller for the International Space Station. She received her bachelor's degree in mathematics and Spanish from Texas Christian University and her master's degree in biomedical engineering from Duke University. Everyone on this mission certainly has the background, the qualifications you would want in your crewmates when you're going to space. That's clear. But let's take a moment now to meet our Polaris Dawn crew in their own words.
Hi, I'm Jared Isaacman.
I'm Scott Kidd Poteet.
I'm Sarah Gillis.
And I'm Anna Menon.
And we're the Polaris Dawn crew. I love this crew. I mean, all of them are just so hardworking, so smart. Kid Poteet over here is our mission pilot. Talk about a career in the Air Force, doing every job as a pilot that anyone could aspire to achieve. And having somebody who has been there before and can bring that perspective to our training, but also when we're on the mission is just so important.
We are what we are as a crew because of you. You hold us together and you are always there.
Glue.
You are always there predicting what every person needs.
And he's needy.
What?
Our commander, Jared, I think he is incredibly sharp.
That's right.
Something I have just witnessed over and over is that he's always like 5 steps ahead of everybody else.
He's a visionary. He wanted to make it bigger than just himself going to space. It was about how we could contribute and support organizations here on Earth, as well as continue to push the envelope for space exploration.
So Sarah Gillis, the technical competence, we don't get out of any engineering update or brief or go through a procedure or debrief without getting into the weeds and making sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted.
She holds my feet to the fire when we need to understand the systems and the operations. It's her intellect.
Every time she speaks, every word is so thoughtfully prepared that served her in her role as core, it served her in her role as a trainer.
Anna, you have this incredible joy that you bring to everyday life. It is infectious. It makes us all smile.
Feels like she always has this big picture. Doesn't necessarily always speak up on it, but when she does, it's like time for everybody to stop and listen. And then as a biomedical engineer and a background like that inspires like a ton of confidence that when you go up there, if people aren't feeling right, that she's going to be there to take care of her.
I cherish all the moments that we've had in these experiences, and we're just so excited to go to space.
Now that you know a little more about the Polaris Dawn crew, let's recap the mission so far and what's coming up next. Since liftoff and getting to their initial orbit on day 1, the crew has been quite busy. The crew had a few meals, got some rest, and spent a few hours demonstrating the EVA suit's pressurized mobility to verify positions and accessibility in microgravity. The crew also prepared the cabin for the EVA and, of course, had an opportunity to talk to their families and check in. As I mentioned earlier, on day 2, Dragon proceeded to a high apogee of more than 1,400 kilometers, higher than any Dragon mission to date. This was also the farthest from Earth for a crewed spacecraft since the last Apollo lunar mission in 1972. In preparation for the spacewalk, Dragon has been executing a series of apogee-lowering phasing burns. By now, Dragon has lowered itself from the highest apogee of the mission of more than 1,400 kilometers to about 190 by 700 kilometers above the Earth. Also on day 2, the crew was joined on air by some very special guests. As you can see here, we are not here, but we had patients and families at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and they're joined live while Polaris Dawn crew member Anna Menon read from her new book, Kisses from Space. Along with the patients and families at St. Jude, Anna's children, James and Grace, also joined the reading. And afterward, the crew hosted a Q&A.
And speaking of St. Jude, for this mission, the Polaris Dawn crew enlisted the help of childhood cancer survivor Liv to create the mission's zero-G indicator. While not a St. Jude patient herself, Liv met the Inspiration 4 crew and, inspired by the mission of St. Jude, she agreed to share her talents to support Polaris Dawn.
My name is Liv, and I spell it L and then an apostrophe mark. Exclamation mark! I can tell you anything about space, from the miles from Earth to the sun to every mission, basically. I had cancer in 2021, cancer survivor like Haley. I really have a passion for wanting to help St. Jude and other kids who have those struggles as I had.
So I first met Liv a couple days after I got back from space at our splashdown party, and I got to meet her family, and they told me about her journey that she was on. I remember that she gave me a card she had written, and it said, "Thank you for helping other kids with cancer like me. I hope to go to space like you someday." And my eyes just filled with tears whenever I read that.
Basically, my one passion is to be the first child in space.
Liv was really close with the Polaris Dawn crew, and they asked her to design the zero-G indicator.
A zero-G indicator is like a little plush toy that floats in the air. It basically shows that you're in zero-G. They kind of hide it over in the corner, and then once you hit zero-G, it'll float up and reveal itself. My main idea for Asteroid is based on Elon's dog, Loki. I've always loved Shibas. They've always been really cute. And then when I heard Elon got Loki, I was like, done. I love her. I want Asteroid to be for every child and help them see, oh, Asteroid went to space. And I can too. I can achieve my dreams.
We are also flying Liv's original drawing that you see there that was used to design the zero-G indicator, which we plan to return to her after it has flown in space. And while her design was inspired by the working dogs of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, all donations from the sale of Asteroid will be general donations to St. Jude. The Inspiration 4 mission helped raise more than $240 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and Polaris Dawn will continue to raise funds and awareness for St. Jude while partnering with the organization to provide healthcare in underserved communities around the world. Now, if you want your very own asteroid, they are available at shop.spacex.com and polarisdawn.com. I did just look. Unfortunately, they are sold out right now, but there are more on the way. So be sure to check back at those sites to catch one of your own, myself included. I missed the first drop, so...
I snagged one. I got in there. I got a kid who
nice.
needs one.
Yeah.
All right, now... The first phase of the spacewalk, the preparation, actually started just about 2 hours after the crew reached orbit. And this is when the pre-breathe process started. That's when the oxygen levels started to increase incrementally as the cabin pressure inside Dragon was started to get incrementally lower.
The pre-breathe process is designed to decrease the amount of nitrogen in the body, which then reduces the risk of decompression sickness, which can happen as atmospheric pressure lowers. Protocols like this are used for any spacewalk done today and might feel familiar to anyone here on Earth that has gone scuba diving and done a decompression stop after ascending from a pressure in deep water back up to the surface.
And to do all this, Dragon's just been slowly decreasing that cabin pressure. That allows the crew to acclimate each time the pressure gets lower. As they get ready for the lower pressure they'll be in the suit during the spacewalk itself. They've got the ability to pause the process if they experience any discomfort, but the ear equilibrium just kind of naturally adjusts as the pressure decreases. It's kind of like when your ears pop when you change altitude in an airplane. All 4 astronauts are going to be suited for the spacewalk today because Dragon does not have an airlock. That's also kind of why the entire cabin is going to be depressurized. That's why we have this kind of unique pre-breathe process with this stuff today too.
All of that brings us to now. So far, the crew has prepared the cabin for vacuum, which includes securing all loose items that they don't want floating around. They also completed medical checks, suit inspections, and final checkouts of the oxygen, venting, and nitrogen repressurization systems. After that, it was time to put on their EVA suits.
And now Jared and Sarah will be exiting the spacecraft today, while Kid and Anna will be supporting from the inside. Crew in the outer 2 seats, Kid and Anna, are going to be fully strapped in, and then the 2 in the middle seats, Jared and Sarah, are just going to be lightly secured ahead of the spacewalk, since they're going to be moving around and eventually heading outside.
As we listen into comms during the EVA, you may hear the crew referred to as EV1, which is Jared, and EV2, which is Sarah. Support 1 is Kid, and Support 2 is Anna. Again, they will not exit the Dragon during the EVA, but make no mistake, they are very much performing an EVA just the same, and their data is being collected as well.
Once everybody's in position, the seats are going to get rotated upright. Generally, they stay in the recline position for the majority of the mission, but we're going to rotate those upright during the EVA just to give more room to move about. After that seat rotation, the crew verifies that their heads-up display or the HUD on their helmet visors are turned on, operating as expected. This is how the crew will actually be able to keep tabs on the health of their suits, and they'll get some other stats of their suit operation during the spacewalk.
And that will take us to the first official go, no-go checkpoint to determine if the EVA can proceed. After an operations brief from the SpaceX team, the crew will announce their go, no-go status, and then it'll be time for the spacewalk to begin. It's expected to last about 2 hours from the time that O2 begins flowing to the crew's suits until we complete the repressurization of the cabin.
And just prior to we get to cabin venting, pure oxygen is going to start flowing to the crew's suits. That's when the EVA clock will start, so keep an eye on that. And this all gets followed by a suit leak check. We'll do the leak checks. Once those look good, Mission Control will start to vent the cabin, just removing the air in order to lower its pressure down until we can get to hatch opening.
Next, Dragon will use its Draco thrusters to reposition itself so that the trunk is facing the sun. This will help keep temperatures, communications, and spacecraft power stable during the spacewalk. At this point, the crew should be ready to open Dragon's hatch and exit the spacecraft.
After the hatch gets opened, EV1, that's Jared's call sign during the spacewalk, he's going to be the first to exit the spacecraft. He's going to go outside and he's going to do a series of mobility tests. These are kind of the core component of the spacewalk today. He's going to basically take the EVA suit through the paces. It's going to take about 15 minutes before he climbs back into Dragon.
After that, EV2, or Sarah, will step out into space to perform the same tests of her EVA suit before she then climbs back into Dragon. In addition to the suit mobility tests, Jared and Sarah will also evaluate Dragon's new Skywalker hardware. We'll talk more about that in just a bit.
Then after she's completed her test, Sarah will stand by near the hatch for the actual closing. And at this point, after the hatch is closed, the EVA is not over. The hatch door gets closed, and then the cabin has to be repressurized. We got to get all that atmosphere back inside. After we start introducing that atmosphere, we'll do cabin leak checks.
Once those leak checks are complete, the crew will return to their seats, and the EVA will be complete when the cabin pressure has returned to nominal. So, for now, the crew is suited up and awaiting final checkouts and EVA venting, which will bring in Dragon to vacuum. With everything on track, we're about 45 minutes or so from the start of the spacewalk.
And before we get there, though, we're going to expand the desk a little bit. We're happy to be joined by former NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins. We were fortunate to have him tune in with us during the launch, and now we've got him to talk to us a little bit about spacewalking today. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to be back here in Hawthorne with you tonight on this very memorable night for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, EVAs may be new to SpaceX, but you have participated in 5 yourself while you were on the International Space Station and spent a total of 333 days in space. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate on my 2 missions. The first one was back in 2013, and I went up on a Russian Soyuz. And on that one, we had 2 spacewalks. And the interesting thing about those spacewalks is they weren't planned. They were what
surprise.
we call, yeah, they were a big surprise for us. Contingency spacewalk, and of course, surprises happen at Christmas because that's when we actually went out the door. Our second walk was on Christmas Eve, and that was pretty exciting to be doing a spacewalk as everybody was getting ready to celebrate Christmas down here.
You guys were just helping deliver presents.
That's right. That's right.
And then your first flight was on the Soyuz, but your second one, you were the commander of Crew 1. I mean, that was obviously really huge for everybody here. That was big for me. I was there with you at NASA still. That was a huge moment. That was the first long duration mission to the space station on Dragon. And I mean, you really got to know Dragon probably more than anybody because you actually got to call it home while you were docked up there.
That's right. I mean, I tell you, it was quite an honor to get to be a part of that crew, to get to command that crew, and it was a great, amazing group of people. Not only Victor, Shannon, and Suichi, but also everybody that helped get us there at SpaceX and at NASA. But yes, you're right, Dan. While we were on board, we didn't have enough crew stations, and actually you can see a picture of where I slept while I was on board for that second mission, and it was actually quite comfortable. And one of the best parts about being able to sleep on Dragon is that I had a view, I had the window, and our other crew quarters did not. So I've got some amazing pictures from my time staying in Dragon.
That's amazing. It's great to have you here. I had the pleasure of watching you launch in person. I was hosting the Crew 1 launch from the NASA press site, and it was just so cool to see everything light up and just watch you ascend to the station where you made it your home. It was also so great to see you here around campus during your training period, to seeing you here on the mez having lunch, and that was really cool. And during that time, you got to get to know the SpaceX team pretty well. In fact, Anna and Sarah were two of your trainers for Crew 1, weren't they?
They were, yes. And I got to, for the launch, we saw some of their videos of training, and I thought it was kind of fun to see them as trainees, and somebody else getting to test them all the time. So it was pretty neat to get to see that.
Switching it up a little bit, because we're starting to get some views back from Dragon. We've been treated to some pretty spectacular stuff as we were, all the way out to 1,400 kilometers. We like to talk about something called the overview effect. So kind of that first, and we're getting some comms from our crew too.
Yeah, I'm not.
SpaceX Dragon radio check.
Catch loud and clear, kid. Help me.
Catching loud and clear. Doffing continues, and last stowage is going to be the cabin mic.
Copy that, kid.
Make that donning.
All right, some quick comm checks. We heard Kid that Scott Poteet, he's going to be one of the support crew in there today. So our first comms down as we get ready for the spacewalk. But we're looking out the view. We're looking down at Earth, that overview effect. What's it like the first time you get to space, you get to look back? And, I mean, you can see horizon to horizon, the whole Earth below you.
It's kind of funny, Dan, because the overview effect is definitely real. But when I first got to space on that Soyuz, gosh, how many years ago? Almost 9 years ago, I had this really weird feeling of falling. And so when I looked out that window the first time, I wasn't really thinking the big thoughts of an overview effect. I was kind of thinking, like, what is going on with my body right now? This feels really...
That's pretty, but oh no.
But again, fortunately, when you have time to be in space, you do have an opportunity to experience that, and it is definitely true. You'll hear people talking about that small sliver of atmosphere, and you see that, and that's what's keeping us alive. You see a world without borders, which is incredible. But one of the experiences of the overview effect that I had was that that it gives you that sense of answers, but it also, for me, gave me a lot of questions and made me realize that there's a lot of this world I don't really know much about. The other parts, other countries, other societies, cultures, languages, and so sometimes it brought as many questions as it did answers.
Wow.
Hopefully a bunch more trips then, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Now, for those of us who have never been to space, it can be hard to imagine looking down from there here at planet Earth. Space photographer and author Frank White originally coined the term the overview effect in a book of the same name. Here's a little more on the phenomenon that few of us have yet to experience.
The overview effect is that sensation or that feeling that you get when you see our whole world from the perspective of being outside of it.
It ranges the whole spectrum from like how delicate the Earth may appear because, it's only this thin blue line that separates this habitable atmosphere of our home planet to, the vacuum of space.
It's hard to comprehend what the impact is going to be when I first see Earth from space. It just reminds us of how fragile our planet is. One of my roles on this crew is to shoot as much footage as we possibly can so we can bring it back and share it with the world.
the big picture awareness that you gain from that sort of perspective when you were, journeying amongst the stars and see our entire planet as we know it there outside of your window, and kind of the philosophical and the many different emotions that it provokes inside of you when you see it that way.
We have barely begun our journey to explore the worlds around us. And that hit me right when I saw the moon rise around Earth and saying, like, come on, it's been 50 years. We got to get back there, and we got to get to Mars, and we got to figure out how to get out of our own solar system and try and figure out what this is all about.
There's so much incredible footage that crew members have taken from space and that you see from satellites. I think it's one of the things I'm looking forward to most on the mission, is getting to see the Earth from that perspective. I can't wait to share what that experience is, but I guess I'll have to let you know once I get back.
And I mean, I think I speak for a lot of SpaceXers. We're
seat 4 is next, support 2 is next, and then EV 1 and 2 are surely behind.
Copy on that crew status.
Getting a quick crew status from Kid. But yeah, I think I speak for a lot of SpaceXers. We really want to get up there and see that view, to feel that effect, to experience that, and being able to see it just from Dragon, and pretty soon getting able to see a couple of people go out of Dragon for the first time in a spacewalk. I mean, spacewalks are kind of like living on the edge with spaceflight. It's always really cool. It's really important for just about any program. Like, what are some of the things when you were outside the space station? What were some of the things that you were working on, Mike?
Yeah, so when I went out, I mentioned that first spacewalk was contingency. We had a failure. And so sometimes when we're going outside, it's not planned, and you have a component that is no longer working. And in this case, it was a part of the cooling system, external cooling system on station. And so we needed to go out and replace this refrigerator-sized pump module. And so that took us a couple walks to do that. Other times we're going out and we're putting a new piece of equipment on board. Sometimes normal maintenance. Sometimes we're upgrading equipment, like new solar arrays, new batteries, and things of that nature. And sometimes you're doing like what the Polaris Dawn crew is going to do today, and you're just checking out the suits and checking out the equipment that you're going to use in future spacewalks as well.
Now, with all of the experience that you have up there, I'm guessing there might be an EVA experience or achievement that you are particularly proud of?
Well, I'm proud of every one of them. Right, when you get out the door and then you come back in safely, I think that's what everybody wants to do.
SpaceX for awareness, we're going to be commanding a couple fans right here. You'll hear them run, but then we'll also be turning them off. No correction required.
Copy.
Actually, if I can, I'm just going to jump in on that.
Absolutely.
That's actually a very important call that was made. You heard him say we're going to turn on some fans, because when you're in space, you acclimate to the sounds around you of the vehicle. And when it changes, all of a sudden, you're kind of looking around at what was that. And so you heard them give them a warning that we're going to turn on some fans. Yeah. And so that they kind of knew what was going. So that's actually a great call from the ground there. But anyway, going back to those spacewalks where I was outside, and what are you proud of? It takes so much to put these vehicles up into space. And so when you go out on the spacewalks and you know that you're a part of keeping that going, a big part of it is you don't want to mess up, right? Because people are depending on you. And
a couple of people watching over your shoulder.
That's right. And so when you get back in and they call up and they say, hey, that repair that you just made, everything's working, looks good, station's back up 100%, just say, like, okay, that feels great.
Dragon SpaceX, our fan commanding is now complete.
Copy, we see, sir.
All right. Hopefully no surprise sounds in there for them. So,
That's right.
I mean, spacewalks are something that you train the heck out of. They're planned down to the minute. What are, why? Like, what are some of the challenges you can run into when you're outside doing a spacewalk?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the first challenges that you're always worried about is how your suit's functioning, right? Because that's what's keeping you alive when you're outside like that. So There are always, you're monitoring your suits yourselves. People on the ground are monitoring your suits and how that's performing. And so those are certainly things that you need to be conscious of and aware of. And then when you're out there as well, there are so many steps that it takes to get through a spacewalk. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of steps. And so it's too much for you to remember. And so that's where it's a teamwork between you and the ground. And so they're making all of those calls. Hey, here's your next step. Here's what the settings are for these tools. And they're just walking you through the whole process. And so I think that's one of the neat things about spacewalks that maybe people don't realize is, you focus on the people actually getting to go out and do the walk. But the team on the ground is such a huge part of that as well.
So on your third, fourth, subsequent EVAs, these spacewalks, you train a lot for them beforehand, before you even get up in space. By the time you're on your fifth one, it must have been more like a cakewalk.
No, it never felt like a cakewalk at all. Because it is. It is a risky endeavor, right? So every time you go out on the spacewalk, you're definitely very, very focused, and you never want to let your guard down with it. I will say you certainly are more comfortable with what's going on. You're more familiar, maybe is a better way to say that. But I think you can kind of trace it back to experiences down here on Earth. For me, a lot of times it's my sports background, so I'll equate a little bit of going out and playing a football game, right? Before every game, you're still nervous, right? Yeah. You're still got a lot of that energy. It was the same thing on my fifth spacewalk like it was on that first one. You still have all of that kind of nervous energy as you're getting ready to go out.
Well, so right now we're still kind of waiting to get into some of the final preparations for this spacewalk. We should be coming up on seat rotation. I don't know if we missed it or not, but again, they're going to be rotating those seats to move them upright. That's just going to give the crew a little bit extra room to move around as we get into this. But for now, why don't we take a couple of moments and meet Dragon. Polaris Dawn is SpaceX's 14th human spaceflight mission since 2020, when Dragon became the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station. It's also the first private spacecraft to take an all-civilian crew to orbit during the Inspiration 4 mission in 2021. And just prior to Polaris Dawn, Dragon completed 46 launches. 13 of those are human spaceflight missions, and it's since flown 50 astronauts representing 14 different countries. Throughout all of those missions, Dragon has helped support more than 1,000 experiments in space.
Pretty incredible stats there. And even from low Earth orbit, Dragon is helping lay the groundwork for deep space exploration. Through missions like Inspiration 4 and Polaris Dawn, we are rapidly expanding our knowledge of how humans will adapt, live, and work in space. Designed to be the safest spacecraft ever flown, the fully autonomous Dragon stands nearly 27 feet tall and 13 feet around. Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit and beyond, but today it's carrying the 4 members of the Polaris Dawn crew. And the crew is currently living and working in the top portion of the spacecraft. It's that white section that you see there, also known as the pressurized section. This allows for the transport of people and environmentally sensitive cargo.
Below that, Dragon's trunk. It sits right below the pressurized section that can carry unpressurized cargo on resupply missions, and it remains attached to Dragon until shortly before re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. And as you can see, about half the trunk is covered in solar panels. Those provide power to Dragon during the flight. The other half is the radiator. Dragon itself is equipped with 16 Draco thrusters. We got a really cool view of the 4 forward bulkhead ones firing earlier on this flight with lights on the Earth behind you. Those are used to orient the spacecraft during the mission. They also get used for apogee and perigee raise and lower maneuvers, orbit adjustments, and attitude control. For the EVA, the Dracos are going to be used to reposition Dragon so the trunk is facing the sun, and they're also there to be used for reorientation during the spacewalk if needed.
In order to accommodate a spacewalk, this is the first Dragon to be outfitted with a Skywalker in place of the cupola observation dome. The Skywalker that you see there, looking up at it from basically from underneath it. The Skywalker is a structure that is mounted to the top of the Dragon capsule, and the astronauts will use this to assist in exiting and re-entering the spacecraft during their spacewalk. The team also added additional nitrogen tanks to assist in repressurization of the capsule after the EVA. Another new feature on Dragon is the addition of a motor plus handholds and footholds inside the spacecraft to help with opening and closing the hatch during the spacewalk.
This Dragon also carrying what we are calling the Starlink plug and placer, making this the first mission on Dragon to use the Starlink network in orbit. Inside of Dragon is a router connected to a user terminal in Dragon's trunk, and then this terminal is linked to a new plug and placer device that's mounted nearby. While we're not using Starlink for continuous coverage during this operation, we've been testing its ability to establish and maintain laser communications with our Starlink satellites there in orbit that are below Dragon.
Dragon has proved to be quite a versatile spacecraft. It can autonomously dock to the space station when outfitted with the ISS docking adapter. And when it's intended for free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out.
SpaceX Dragon, you guys are welcome to come back aboard if you want.
SpaceX copies. Don't have a ground station right now, but we'll go ahead and bring cameras back on board so we get it when we do have ground stations.
Copy.
Quick comms there with SpaceX Core from the Dragon capsule. That was the crew just letting the folks here in mission control, letting us know that it's okay to turn the onboard cameras back on once we have coverage for those cameras. But getting back to the different configurations that we have for the Dragon capsule, I was talking about the docking adapter previously. When the Dragon capsule is intended for free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola, which is the one in the middle there, and that is used for the best views that you can get while in orbit. And then, of course, our newest option, the Skywalker hardware to support extravehicular activities, and that's what the crew is going to be using this morning. So those are the current 3 ways that Dragon can be configured to support different types of missions. But hey, you never know what's to come. We always got something up our sleeve.
That's right. Now, Mike, Crew 1 broke the record for the longest space flight by a U.S. crewed vehicle. It surpassed the 84-day mark that was set by an Apollo capsule during that final flight to the Skylab space station in 1974. What was it like? Because we went over it. You literally called Dragon home during that time.
Yeah,
what was it like to live in there?
So first of all, I got to say it's pretty exciting because the Dragon that they're using right now is the Dragon that I lived in that took us to orbit.
Dragon Resilience.
Yeah, we affectionately called Resilience, and it was an amazing spacecraft. It from a standpoint of living inside it, and again, it a lot of room actually compared to some of the other crew quarters that we had on board, and plus just being able to spend all that time in it. I'd call my family every night before I'd go to bed, and I'd be looking out the window at the Earth as I was doing that. It was very special.
Did any of them get jealous because you had the window seat?
Well, yeah, there was a little bit of that certainly going on up there.
Nice. Now, as you mentioned, this Dragon capsule that the that the Polaris Dawn crew is flying in was previously used, really debuted on the Crew 1 mission, hence why you guys had the honor of naming it in the first place. But this capsule was also used for the Inspiration 4 mission that Jared also commanded. What is your take on this being one spacecraft but supporting multiple missions?
I think it's fantastic. It just shows the flexibility of the design that SpaceX made when looking at the Crew Dragon vehicles. So I think it's very exciting to see a vehicle that can go from one mission to the other, and quite frankly do it quite quickly as well. I think I don't remember the exact timing from our mission and when we landed to when Inspiration 4 launched, but it wasn't a very long time, and yet you were able to take that docking adapter off, put the cupola on in a very short time, which is also pretty impressive.
I actually have that noted here. Crew 1 took off in November of 2020, and Inspiration 4 lifted off in September of 2021.
That's incredible.
Less than a year.
We landed in May of 21, and so within that short period of time, you reconfigured the vehicle, and and we're able to put that cupola on and launch.
Cool.
Yeah, very impressive.
Your mission patch sticker is in the capsule that they're in now, and
that's
we'll
exciting.
add their own sticker too as well.
Right.
All right. Well, as you can imagine, Dragon has undergone some changes for this, and with changes comes extensive testing for the mission. And all the modifications that we made in preparation for today had to go through kind of their own test regimen.
Yeah. Testing is a critical part of qualifying a spacecraft like Dragon for flight. Rigorous testing helps identify and mitigate potential risks, verify system and component reliability, and helps ensure that the designs meet the mission requirements. There are many types of tests a spacecraft might undergo when qualifying for flight, including structural, thermal vacuum, radiation, software, and integrated systems testing.
One of the tests the new Skywalker hardware underwent is thermal vacuum testing. This actually tested how Skywalker withstands the extreme temperature swings that it's going to see while it's in the vacuum of space. And while Dragon was being put through all of its paces, the Polaris Dawn crew was going through the same SpaceX training as part of that we give to NASA astronauts. They also had to train to perform their EVA, though. For basic training at SpaceX Hawthorne, they got trained on everything from orbital mechanics to just how to live and work in microgravity. Also ran through numerous simulations of what the full mission would look like while they were seated inside of our Dragon trainer.
In addition to ensuring that they're familiar with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft, the crew went through an extensive training regimen to build their physical endurance and mental toughness, ensuring that they are well-rounded and prepared for spaceflight and today's EVA.
Now, switching gears, one of the coolest things, designed in-house by SpaceX, the EVA suit has all the functions of our original spacesuit with the added bonus of allowing astronauts to exit the spacecraft while in orbit.
And this mission gives us a great opportunity to test our EVA suits in space. Building a base on the moon and a city on Mars will require thousands of spacesuits, so the development of this suit and the EVA performed on this mission will be important steps toward a scalable design for spacesuits on future long-duration missions.
As we mentioned, SpaceX designs and manufactures our own suits, and we have a little behind-the-scenes look for you, something most people don't get to see, the inside of our very own suit lab.
An EVA suit is an extravehicular activity suit, which is a spacesuit that can go outside of the spacecraft to do a spacewalk. We started with the IVA suit that we have, the intravehicular activity suit, as a kind of starting point, and looked at it and said, what would we have to change about this to be able to support a spacewalk? So the first is mobility. The crew will have to do a lot of moving around inside of Dragon to get outside and do the spacewalk. We had to add in new joints and new features in the suit to allow them enhanced mobility while the suit's pressurized.
When a crew member is pressurized in the suit, the soft portions of the suit become rigid. They need actual flexure and rotational joints to allow them to move around. It's kind of like a suit of armor made of fabric. We innovated in flexure joints to allow easy bending at the elbows and the knees, as well as a collapsible rotator joint that exists on the shoulder, which allows the suit to remain nearly fully soft, but when pressurized is a rotational bearing.
The difference between the IVA and the EVA suit is that on the IVA suit, the zipper system location is in the inseam. But since we needed to have lots of mobility on our EVA suit, that was not the preferred choice. By moving the zipper system from the inseam to the waist, we mitigated risk of the stress of the zipper.
And another big element was also the thermal side of things. The crew is obviously exposed to a much more extreme thermal environment during the EVA. So we want to make sure that the inside of the suit is comfortable for them, and that as they interface with parts of the vehicle, that is safe for them to touch as well.
The EVA suit is built and designed here at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. We wanted to have something that's easy manufactured that we can handle here in-house. So we developed this new material, so it's fabric-based.
We actually added a new layer to the suit, which we refer to as the Faraday layer. And this is a conductive cage around the suit that shields the suit from external electric fields.
The helmet on the EVA suit looks very similar to the IVA suit, but it is really an all-new design of that helmet. It's much more robust from a thermal structural perspective since it will be taking more extreme temperatures.
We are really excited to introduce this new single-pane visor helmet to the world of spacesuits. The EVA suit visor is made of polycarbonate and is coated with copper and ITO, or indium tenoxide. These two coatings together reflect the sun away from the crew, as well as reflecting infrared heat back to the crew when they are facing deep space. Our suit has a HUD, or heads-up display, which is a small display screen in the helmet, which is transparent, which allows the crew to see through the display to have unfettered access during their EVA, but it also provides critical telemetry to the crew, so pressure, temperature, relative humidity.
We're trying to improve the technology and streamline it in one way, and at the same time, we're also trying to get it more and more manufacturable with each generation. The ultimate goal is that you can put on a spacesuit and go out and get work done anywhere in the solar system and not feel like you're wearing anything more than you normally wear every day.
We also had a chance to talk to the SpaceX team that developed some of the hardware and procedures for our first spacewalk. Let's hear what they had to say.
EVA stands for extravehicular activity, and it's any sort of operation in space where a human is getting out of the spacecraft. So in the case of Polaris Dawn, we're going to be testing the mobility of the suit. We're going to see if the in-space operation matches the training we've done here in Hawthorne. There's really a lot of different things that can happen during an EVA, and this is the first step for Dragon and SpaceX.
When I first started working at SpaceX, I never thought I'd be training a crew to do an EVA. It's brand new, it's so unique, we've never done anything like this before, and so we wanted to make sure we had the best possible training program for this mission.
We want to see if we can train a spacewalk on Earth in a way that's representative of what it feels like in space.
Even though only 2 people are going to be going outside during this first EVA, all 4 crew will be in EVA suits going down to vacuum.
Dragon was always designed to vent to full vacuum, but we've never taken a full Dragon capsule down to vacuum, and this will be the first time we do it in space.
We actually put crew into a chamber at Johnson Space Center in Houston and had them live the exact profile that they will experience, and making sure that no one actually experienced decompression sickness.
We have a couple new training assets for Polaris Dawn to train the EVA specifically. The suspension system that we have is situated on top of the platform of our capsule simulator. The lines drop through the hatch. They attach to a single crew member inside the capsule. We can lift them up and get them situated so that they can egress the capsule and perform their tasks at Skywalker, the mobility aid.
The Skywalker, what's amazing to me is a lot of people are going to think it's a metallic structure just bolted to the top of Dragon, but a lot of development effort, testing went into the Skywalker. So we actually used similar technology as we have in the Super Draco chambers to apply a thermal barrier coating to the outside of the Skywalker. That is going to be a really, really amazing mobility aid on the front end of Dragon.
We also developed a sideways simulator, so we flip the hatch on its side.
In the event the hatch fails to close, they can manually close the hatch. We have them do that in a sideways suspension system, so gravity isn't helping them close or helping them open that hatch mechanism.
It's new development for Dragon, it's new development for SpaceX and the industry as a whole. So this is a great example of where Polaris Dawn is forcing the team to innovate in a way that adds safety and reliability to every Dragon mission going forward.
That's this huge challenge for us to go solve, but that's also an opportunity for us to solve the problems that we have to go figure out anyway for our larger goals, like putting people on Mars.
The Polaris Dawn objectives are the first step towards that ultimate flight with humans inside of Starship, which is right along the SpaceX development path that we have towards getting to the Moon and Mars.
Love seeing how not only the suit, but the space operations for the EVA itself came together and were developed. Now we are still counting down to the spacewalk this morning. The crew on board is completing final fit-ups, and we're going to be standing by for seat rotation and suit leak checks. So We're continuing to truck along to the main event. Now, Mike, you obviously went through some of the suit up process that we saw in that package in terms of the development of the suit and how it's custom fitted for each individual. And that's the same case for an EVA suit. So maybe you can share with us what that experience was like.
Yeah, it's extremely important to have a suit that fits, whether, again, it's the IVA, the EVA suit, or the EMU that we wear with NASA when we go out on the spacewalks. And the reason for that is because if it doesn't fit right, it can be extremely uncomfortable. You can get what you call hot spots, or there can be a place where a crease, when it gets pressurized, can really put a hard point on your arm or something of that nature. So having a good suit fit check is extremely important. And it's one of the things that was kind of fun as well, because you get to spend a lot of time with the suit team here with Chris and Eric
and
Maria.
They're a great crew. They're so good.
They're fantastic. And I mean, just over the years, they've gained so much experience, and they can really help you hone in on what the really good fitting suit is like, with just the way they ask the questions and lead you through that process.
Wow.
What are kind of the sensational differences from being in like the IVA suit? Because a lot of times the IVA suit, when it gets pressurized, it fills up, but you're still in like a pressured environment. With EVA suit, you're in the vacuum.
Right.
And so like what's it kind of like?
Yeah, so that IVA suit, it has a different purpose, right? And that the purpose of that IVA suit is to keep us alive in the event of some type of an emergency that might happen during a launch or a landing. And so that's that case where either you have a fire or you have a depress event, and so that suit's going to pressurize. And so in that case, we're not as worried about like the mobility of the suit. You just want to get home and do it in a safe way. And so you need to have enough mobility to still be able to control the spacecraft and do the things you need to do, but you're just not as worried about it because you're not trying to perform a maintenance activity or something like that when you're going out on a spacewalk. And so I think that's one of the biggest differences between the IVA suit and the EVA suit, is just what the purpose of it is and what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, that feedback loop is so important to be able to communicate what feels good, what doesn't, because I imagine, as you're out there and having to perform, as you mentioned, maintenance activities, among other things, that the functionality of your body is critical to perform those.
It really is. And probably one of the hardest, I think, parts of the suit to design is the gloves. Right? Because
absolutely,
you hear us use the term "it fits like a glove," right? We use that a lot, but you don't realize how much you use your hands when you're outside on a spacewalk, as opposed to, say, your feet when you're, because in space we don't use our feet or our legs as much as we do our hands. And so when you're in a pressurized suit like that, and you're constantly grabbing and reaching, you are overcoming the pressure of the suit, and your hands can get just exhausted. And you can get those hot spots. I had some issues with my EMU gloves when I first started training at NASA, and I would actually get what's called delamination on my fingernails.
Ouch.
And so there's just little things like that it really matters how well that suit fits and how well it functions. And so you don't realize how important that is sometimes.
Yeah. Now, we are going to be stepping into suit leak checks soon. Can you share with us a little bit about what that process entails? And more importantly, because you've actually experienced what it feels like to go through suit leak checks, what that experience is like.
Extremely important part of the whole process, right? Because before you take the cabin, in this case, all the way down to vacuum, you want to make sure that your suit is maintaining the pressure that it needs to. And so it's not a very long process. It's usually just a few minutes to 2 or 3 minutes. And the interesting part is, if you don't pass that leak check, what do you do next? And so there's always usually procedures associated with that as well, that start checking your zippers, start checking how you've closed things up. Did you not get something sealed quite right? And so it's always a good point in the mission when whether it's on the launch pad getting ready, whether it's in the airlock getting ready to go out the door, when you hear that, good leak check, because now you know that you're ready to go.
So today's going to be kind of unique because all 4 of our crew members are going to be like doing the spacewalk. They're all going to be exposed to the vacuum of space. But I mean, even when you did spacewalks, it's never a solo act, right? Like you're always out there with a partner.
You are. It's extremely important. In fact, one of the hardest parts about our training for spacewalks is what we call incapacitated crew. And so you need to always be able to get your crewmate back into the airlock if something should happen, if they should no longer be conscious and something of that nature. And so we actually do spend quite a bit of time, and that's why it's extremely important for us to go out in pairs, because things can go wrong, and so you want to be prepared for those moments.
Yeah. That's a great point, Dan, to make that while only Jared and Sarah are going to be somewhat exiting the spacecraft, all 4 crew members are going to be exposed to the vacuum of space, and it's actually going to set a new record for most number of people exposed to, or not them without a suit, but like in the vacuum of gravity all at the same time.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I never actually thought of that piece of this mission, and the fact that you're going to have 4 people on a spacewalk. I know at one point on a shuttle mission we had three folks outside on a spacewalk. And so, that's a big deal and kind of exciting. You know, one of the things we do on the space station, of course, is we have astronauts that are still inside, and if we do get into those emergency situations, they're there prepared to help us get back into the airlock and get unsuited and things of that nature. So, of course, when you have all the crew, it just makes you think about those emergency situations probably in a little bit different way than we do on station.
And hey, if you're just tuning in, we are still waiting to really kick off our spacewalk today. So right now the crew is inside the spacecraft. They're getting suited up. We should be hearing some comms from them pretty soon. And then
SpaceX Dragon EV1 is completing glove zipper closures, but at this time we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy that for seat rotation. Can you confirm crew is ready with the current glove zipper ops?
All right, I guess they just needed me to say it was coming soon, and then there it is. But we are going to hear the seat rotation coming up soon. Again, they're in the recline position.
And I'll do standby well to get them to the seat.
Copy. Standing by.
So they're going to get those seats rotated, and then we're pretty much going to be ready to start getting into things. And our EVA is going to officially start when we start flowing O2 into those suits. And so that'll kind of start our clock. We're going to be showing you some of the telemetry. So all those numbers, the bottom of your screen, you've got a couple right now. That one all the way in the bottom left corner, that's your Dragon. That's your Dragon cabin pressure. That's in PSI.
SpaceX Dragon, you're ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. Initiating seat rotation.
Great news there. That's going to help give the crew a little bit more room to move around during the spacewalk. And after we get through the seat rotation, we'll be able to perform those suit leak checks that we were just talking about.
Yeah, before they do that, they'll do what's called a tear. So it's kind of like if you're ever using a scale, you zero out the scale before you put something on it. It's essentially what we're doing with the suits. They'll get like a baseline reading, and then as we start to actually pressurize the suits, we'll be able to measure that against the baseline, make sure everybody's got basically a nice seal before we start that vent.
Yeah, that one's pretty important.
That was pretty important. Yeah, so a lot of that's coming up. Again, some of the data on your screen, you've got cabin pressure, you've got suit pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, seat rotation complete and nominal.
All right, seat rotation's complete, so now they're going to start doing that tear, getting ready.
Dragon, copy, did you see the phone?
Copy, and can I get a confirmation of completion per the call out in 2.18?
H1 SpaceX, complete with 2.18.
Copy. At this time, you are go to step into section 3 and tear suit deucers.
Copy. Everyone through it.
Just a quick reminder, in case if you missed the top of the show, we're going to be referring to the crew a little differently for the EVA activity than we were previously. So we heard Anna talk EV1. That was referring to Jared. So basically his call sign for this spacewalk operation is EV1. Sarah's call sign will be EV2. Anna will be support 2, and Scott will be support 1. Also, Scott and Sarah are switching seats. Perhaps they already have. Yeah.
Copy. Standby for HUD power for pressure sensor checkouts.
Okay, so our suit tear completed. So next up is going to be the HUD checkout. So the HUD, your heads-up display.
Very excited about this.
Really excited about this. And Mike, I'd love to kind of get your perspective on this real quick. We do have on your screen, though, that's your seat order. So you've got EV1. Jared is in that seat. He's going to be in that seat right now, but once we actually get ready to open the hatch and everything, he's going to be positioned kind of over by the hatch. And then Sarah, EV2, is going to be in one of those center seats. Then you'll have Anna and Kid on either side.
Dragon SpaceX, suit HUD's powered. Report results of primary sensor HUD checks in 3.2.
So again, that's our seat layout. We just heard the HUDs are powered on, so they've got heads-up displays actually being kind of projected on their visor in their helmet, which if you've ever seen spacesuits, that's always kind of felt like that's that space age technology that we're missing. Because Mike, you guys use kind of a simpler but a little unorthodox way to see like your suit data.
Yeah, that's right, Dan. It's of course the suits
and SpaceX HUD checkout complete, all nominal.
Nice.
Copy. Swapping to backup sensors. Stand by to repeat HUD checks.
So, of course, the suits that we use for the spacewalks on station are a little bit older. They've been around for quite a while, and so some of this technology,
Oh, look, it's our first live views inside Dragon Resilience for this morning.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I think this is the definition of chillin'.
Yeah.
So they're out of his seat. That's Commander Jared, who, like I mentioned before, will be referred to as EV1. Behind him, we can see already in his new seat, pilot Scott Kidd Poteet. He will be support 1. And then moving around in front of us is Sarah, who will be EV2. And then just out of view underneath the camera, but I think you can see her visor, is Anna Menon, who is support 2.
Dragon SpaceX, we're on backup sensors. Repeat HUD checks.
Crew's going to check out those heads-up displays one more time real quick.
SpaceX, HUD checkouts on backup sensors, all nominal.
Copy. Good HUDs. Returning to primary. Stand by for helmet camera checkouts.
On that heads-up display, they'll be able to see the O2 flow timer. That's kind of like our mission clock, essentially, like once the O2 has started to flow to their seats, and they know they've got about an hour and 50 minutes, just under 2 hours for the whole time. They'll be able to see their suit pressure, temperature. Basically, it's a way to kind of keep an eye on things. And we were talking about it a little bit, Mike, but on the EMU is a little bit different.
Yeah, the EMU is certainly different. A lot of that kind of information is on a display right in front of you that you have to kind of look down to see, and it can be pretty challenging to see. In fact, a lot of the information, you have to use a mirror on your wrist to be able to read it and know what you're controlling as well. You mentioned the timer. Of course, we don't have that kind of information on ours, and I'm not sure I'd want to know that because I'd feel the pressure of, hey, I got to get a lot of things done and I'm running out of time. Yeah.
All right. So they're going through these HUD checkouts again pretty soon.
Dragon SpaceX powering on helmet cams.
We're going to get the helmet cams powered on. Again, give you that kind of look right over their shoulders.
Yeah, pretty excited for these. We've seen them utilized during the training sessions that the crew has undergone, and we're so excited to see them live today.
Yeah, I tell you, the helmet cameras, I mean, it's going to be fantastic views, right, that we're all going to love. But there's also a very important role for those cameras as well. Like when we have the same thing, we have helmet cameras with the EMUs, and what it allows is your ground team.
Dragon SpaceX suit cameras powered. Confirm good health.
So it really allows your ground teams to kind of be able to see what you're doing. And
SpaceX is to get video on both speeds, no fault.
And almost double check your work.
Copy. Checkout's complete. HUDs will remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, report when complete.
All right, so we got through HUD checks, we got cameras on, powered, ready to go. So right now the crew is going to go through, they're going to do kind of a final review of all of their procedures. Like you talked about this a little bit, like these things are so choreographed because even if you couldn't see the clock, like you're on the clock. So you've really got to make the most out of like every single second you're doing one of these.
You do, and of course you see that with today's spacewalk as well.
Dragon SpaceX repeating. Checkouts are complete. HUDs are going to remain powered. Proceed to step 3.3, operations review through 3.8, and report when complete.
Copy, inwards.
And the reason it's so choreographed and important is because you only have so much time outside, right? You only have so many consumables that allow you to go out there. And so you want to take advantage of all of that. And you want to have every step very well scripted so that there's not a lot of wasted time. Now, that being said, it is nice when you're out there once in a while to just kind of take a moment, look around, enjoy the views, kind of trying to absorb where you actually are, which can be pretty incredible as well.
Every once in a while, guys, I'm a little tired. I'm going to take a minute.
That's right. I need to take a break.
I see my house from here.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, but like it's awesome. We're seeing the crew inside. We're getting close to the start of today's spacewalk. We're going to start flowing O2 to the suits, and that's when our clock's going to start. Right now, they're just doing kind of final cabin configurations. They're going to check the lighting. They're going to make sure that their umbilicals are in the right spot. That's one of the things you'll see. That's actually one of the roles that our support crew members are really going to. That's kind of one of their primary jobs during the spacewalk is to manage those umbilicals. For you guys, Mike, you had one. That's what plugs into kind of the leg in your suit, and that's what's providing like the breathing gas, comms, connections, all of that stuff. For the spacewalk today, it's a little bit different. This one that they're going to be using has some tethers in it for Sarah and Jared. It's about 12 feet long, so it's like about double the length of what you guys have.
So it's dual purpose, right? It's providing them the air and the cooling that they need while they're out on the spacewalk, but it's also providing that safety piece, right? So that if something should happen, they should slip or that they're not going to go floating off into space. With the EMU that we use on the space station, we actually, all of those consumables are a part of the suit itself, and we have a separate safety tether that the first thing we do when we open that hatch and we go out is we hook up that safety tether, and it's an 85-foot reel that as you're moving around, it goes out with you to, again, protect for that crazy moment when maybe an emergency happens and you come off station.
How hard was it to manage all of those tethers? I feel like every time I watched, it was like, there's no way in heck that this thing isn't getting snagged on something.
No, you're absolutely right, because everything, and you talked earlier about making sure there was no loose items in the cockpit, right? Because when you open that hatch, things are going to want to float away if they're not tied down or stored or anything like that. So when we go out on a spacewalk, not only do we keep us tethered to the spacecraft, but any tool, any part that we take out with us also has to be tethered. And it can be quite a challenge to manage all. You'll open up a bag and there's 10 pieces of hardware in there with 10 different tethers, and they get all tangled up, and it can really be pretty challenging.
It's important, though. We simplified that a little bit for this mission. We actually basically built in that tether into the umbilical, one of which you can see actually there floating under Jared's right arm. So not only does that provide airflow and comms and all the normal connections that we have in the umbilicals, but we also added that strength to provide that protection.
Yeah, and the managing of that tether is extremely important because, you know, as they go out, if it can get tangled up, and you actually see Sarah there kind of moving around, right? It's very easy in this environment where you're floating.
SpaceX Dragon EVA off review complete. Crew are in position for EVA start.
Nice.
Excellent
SpaceX
news.
copies, crew in position.
But you saw Sarah kind of move the tether out of the way, and the part of that is that's actually impacting
Dragon
Jared.
SpaceX, you are go to command box triggered push to talk, all seats.
Copy, North.
And so this'll be one of the unique things about the spacewalk today. It'll feel familiar if you watch some of Mike's spacewalks. The crew is going to go over to what's called Vox.
Push to talk is set. Go for com check.
EV1, com check.
EV2, com check.
Support 1, com check.
Support 2, com check.
SpaceX copies all, good comms, all 4 crew. SpaceX copies all, good comms, all 4 crew.
So essentially now all of our crew are on open mics. They can all talk and hear each other, and they can talk to the ground. And so you're going to hear a lot more chatter start to pick up. Once we start the suit pressurization, you're going to hear almost like a sound. That's just the air starting to flow into their suits. How loud does it get inside your suit?
It actually is quite loud. That airflow is just constantly, which is a good thing, right? Because not only is it providing you the oxygen, but it's also helping get rid of that CO2 that you're breathing out. So you want that airflow to be constantly going, and so you always are hearing that fan that's making that happen. And so that is certainly pretty important. And the Vox thing, I got to say, you know, it's nice that you don't have to push a button when you're outside there to talk.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation.
Got some fist bumps going on.
Yeah.
And we just heard we're about 90 seconds from EVA initiation. So we should see them get the go to close their visors, and then they're going to open up one of the O2 valves on their suits to start the suit purge, and that's going to be the official start of our spacewalk today. So we'll get through the final goes, and then we'll see those visors get closed, oxygen start flowing, and we'll be off.
I love how everyone looks so calm and collected right now. I think that's a great visualization of just all the extensive training that they've gone through to get to this point. This has been years in the making. I'm sure they're excited, but everyone's focused.
It is an interesting time right now, right? Because one of the hardest parts I always found about
Dragon SpaceX. SpaceX is go for spacewalk operations. Report visors down, ready for secondary O2 flow initiation, and crew is go for spacewalk.
Verify your visors are closed. Secondary O2 valve is open. And that you are go for the EVA.
EV1 is go.
EV2 is go.
Support 1 is go.
Support 2 is go.
Dragon SpaceX initiating secondary O2.
And with that news, our EVA has begun.
So you're going to hear it referred to as primary and secondary O2. Primary is going to be that primary flow of oxygen to pressurize. Secondary is largely putting oxygen into their suits to help with cooling, but secondary is the first one we turn on. And so our O2 flow timer has started. EVAs start at 3:12 a.m. Pacific. I'll do the math on UTC in a little bit. So this first operation, or this first step in the operation, is a suit purge. So inside their suit, obviously when the visor is still open, it's still a nitrox environment. It's the same as the cabin. And since they're going to be at a lower pressure than what you can basically live at with oxygen levels, they're going to be on pure O2. They're going to be a 100% oxygen environment. And I mean, you guys were kind of in the same thing. And it's because like your suit, you can't move a suit around at 14.7 psi, can you?
No,
maybe you can, but like
no, that'd be pretty tough to do. And as we had talked about earlier, that's why that mobility is so important, because when that suit is pressurized like that, it can be challenging to move around.
Absolutely. So here on your screen, we can see the Polaris Dawn crew. Now with their visors down, the EVA has begun. We are beginning to flow that O2 through. Now, we will, of course, bring these views to you as we have them, but due to ground station coverage, they do come in and out here and there. But every moment that we can, we will certainly be sharing these with you. I also wanted to point out quickly that the window near kids' feet was so much brighter than it was just even 5 minutes ago. We're going to be seeing that in stark contrast as soon as we get the EVA, or with the hatch open and EV1 out there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you mentioned that, because as you're going around the Earth as fast as you are, right, in 30 minutes or 45 minutes or so, you can be passing in and out of that sun and going into shadow. And so that brings its challenges as well, because the temperature can change pretty drastically just in those transitions from night to daylight, and so it's an interesting moment when you're passing through that time.
That's actually one of the reasons that the visors have this new coating on them, different than when you wore a similar helmet. That coating actually helps to insulate the individual inside the suit, so when they're looking at the sun.
Dragon SpaceX. A reminder, after the initiation of primary O2 flow, EV1, EV2 will need to adjust VOX threshold low following primary O2 flow initiation.
EV1 copies. EV2 copies.
Dragon SpaceX, secondary flow purge complete. Close secondary O2 valves and report ready for suit pressurization.
EV1 closed. EV2 closed.
Port 1 closed.
Port 2 closed. SpaceX Dragon is ready for suit pressurization.
Initiating primary O2.
This is normal. This is with the airflow coming through. The crew members are on VOX, meaning that their microphone is on the whole time. So Sarah and Jared are going to be adjusting their audio levels as this flow continues to help regulate that.
Yeah, the VOX will kind of attenuate, so it'll sound like this now, but as we get through the spacewalk, it'll kind of come down, and you'll just hear voices a little bit more clearly. Their voices are actually going to change too. Like, did that happen to you? Did that throw you, Mike, the first time you heard that?
It absolutely did, yeah, because you're talking and you're going, who is that, right? 'Cause you don't realize how much different it can sound.
Yeah.
Your voice can sound in that lower pressure environment.
Yeah. Speaking of lower pressure, we can see the pressure changing there with the telemetry in the bottom left-hand side of the screen, so we can see that suit pressure going up, and we're able to keep tabs there. As well with the Dragon pressure. So Dragon on the far left circle, that's the pressure within the cabin, and then suit, obviously that's the pressure within the suits. So we'll actually be able to, and I think we've kind of been able to see it already, that these suits will inflate a little bit, look a little different. Yeah, we were talking about the visors before. So when they're in the sunlight, that coating will help keep them cool and not overheat them. And then when they're in shadow, it'll help keep them warm. So,
and it's also like your sunglasses as well.
Yeah.
Right? Serves that purpose.
All right, so at this moment, the suits are getting their primary pressurization. This takes about 3.5 minutes, a little bit less, and then we're going to go through those actual suit leak checks. The crew will probably get a reminder they have to stay really still when we do those leak checks, and I always was kind of wondering, like, why the heck? And like, if you bend your arms, you're actually going to start, changing the volume inside the suit, and that'll cause pressure spikes. And so
that's right.
You got to stay really still.
Yep.
And then after we get through the leak checks, we're going to go through kind of that final pre-breathe where they're going to hang out in that 100% O2 environment just to continue purging all of that excess nitrogen.
Suit pressure stable when purge complete. Activate secondary flow on. Report when complete.
EV1 open. Port 1 open. Port 2 open.
And right there, they finished the purge, and they did a quick reinitiation of that secondary flow check.
Response, close secondary flow, and report when complete.
EV1 close. Port 2 close.
SpaceX, can you confirm secondary flow closed?
These handles that we see Jared holding on to, these were one of the additions or customizations for this mission that we talked about earlier.
Support 1, SpaceX contact.
We got you.
All right, copy. Got support 1.
Copy.
Dragon SpaceX beginning suit leak check evaluation. Remain still for leak checks.
Once again, that background noise is expected. That is the microphones and the flow of air within the suits. So we're trying to stay quiet to, along with you, listen in on what the crew comms are as they go through. We're also going to get views in and out, as we mentioned before, due to ground station coverage.
Continuing suited preview.
And it is a little bit tough to hear. We just heard, though, that we got 4 good leak checks on their suits, and now they're going to be in this final suited pre-breathe. And so again, this is going to last about 19 or so minutes, and this is just to do kind of that final, get all of the excess nitrogen out. And we started pre-breathe just two hours after they got on orbit, just by gradually lowering the pressure. And I mean, pre-breathe, that's something that kind of evolved over time with the space station. Where were you when you were doing your spacewalks?
Yeah, so we were past the kind of the camp out phase of pre-breathe. But that's how we used to do it. And it's very similar to what the Polaris Dawn crew has been doing over the last couple of days. We'd actually have astronauts stay inside the crew lock overnight at a lower pressure, just like they did when they first got on orbit. Now we've moved on to, we do it the day of. It still is a long day. We start about 6 hours prior to going out the door, but it's not 2 days prior.
It's worth noting along the lines of training and how the crew prepared for this mission that all 4 of our Polaris Dawn crew members and some additional Polaris and SpaceX crew members actually went into a vacuum chamber and tested these suits out and spent a bit of time at lower pressure just to help learn what that feels like and get used to it.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important about that is it's real, right? It's the first time that you're in that suit and it's actually a vacuum around you, right? And there's just something mentally that I think is important to put people through those moments before you actually have to experience the first time in space.
Yep.
We saw some of the unique ways we train the crew for this. And I mean, training for space station spacewalks, I'm still really upset I never got in the pool. That looks like one of the coolest parts of being an astronaut is not being in space, but just doing some of this training.
Yeah, Dan, I tell you, I can still remember the first time I stuck my head underwater, not in the suit, but for diving. But you can hear the comms of everything that's going on through the water like that, and it just gives me goosebumps to think about that. It was a really neat environment, but it looks like these guys had a pretty neat way to train as well with the harness that would hoist them up and out and all of that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we definitely created some rigorous new training for the best we could simulate an EVA while still on Earth with hoists and it was a lot of fun to watch them train.
Yeah. We'll be back on board with cameras in 3 minutes.
So our core just called up. We'll get views back on board in about 3 minutes. As Kate talked about earlier, we're using ground stations for our video coverage. All of our communication with the astronauts are through TDRS, so tracking and data relay satellites. So we'll have constant audio, but that video, we need those ground stations. But right now they're in that pre-breathe. That final pre-breathe still. We started our spacewalk about 13 minutes ago. We initiated O2 flow to the suits. That time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. I did some quick math. Took me 13 minutes to do it, but I did it. So once they're through this pre-breathe, we're going to start getting into some really exciting parts of the spacewalk. And then after we get through the pre-breathe, we're going to get to cabin vents. So, what's going through your head when you're like, man,
it's happening.
The air's going out.
It's really happening.
It's happening.
Yeah, I tell you, it is a long process to get to this point, right? They've been prepping for this for 2 days, right? And one of the hardest things I found about the spacewalks is the waiting.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait, right? You are so ready to go out and to do this mission and to go out that hatch, and it just takes time. And I think that's one of the things you talked about, my fifth versus my first. Your fifth, you kind of understand how long it's going to take. You have a better appreciation for how long it's going to take. And so you literally find yourself in these moments when you're kind of waiting through this pre-breathe or you're waiting for the airlock to depressurize. You just kind of find yourself just floating there, kind of zoning out, trying to keep yourself calm and relaxed and until that moment when it's game time.
Yeah. Now, just a quick mention, we're about a minute out until we get those views back inside the cabin. The view that we had previously was our Dragon tracker, which if you want to see where Dragon is, you can actually look that up as well. We have it on our website, spacex.com/follow-dragon. But yeah, just as a reminder, our crew, they are in their designated, or well, Jared's not, but our crew members, basically Sarah and Kid, have switched their seats for the EVA. Last time we were able to see inside the cabin, we saw Jared awaiting to open the hatch. So he wasn't in his commander's seat, but Sarah is now sitting in Scott's pilot seat, also known as seat 3. And then Anna is on the far left side, and Scott is on the, oh yeah, we can see it there, on the far right side. And also just a reminder, their call signs for these EVA operations, Anna being support 2, Kid being support 1, and then Sarah being EV2 and Jared EV1, representing that Jared will exit first, do his activities, which include just some mobility testing of the suit, and then Sarah will go out and perform the exact same testing once Jared comes in. Meanwhile, Kid and Anna will function as the eyes and ears. They will be performing their own list of operations during or their own list of tasks during the EVA. So while Sarah and Jared are going to be the ones that are, partially egressing the capsule once that forward door is open, Kid and Anna will also be performing an EVA in their own right.
That's right. And we talked about it earlier, first time 4 people exposed to the vacuum of space. There's a lot of firsts in this. That's going to be a really cool first, not just for us and Dragon. But we are going to be getting views back really soon. We're, again, just in that final pre-breathe step right now. And then we're going to start venting Dragon down to near vacuum. So we're going to have a couple of different valves that are going to open up. And the atmosphere inside Dragon is going to start going overboard out into the vacuum of space. Now, the crew, the ground, they can pause that cabin venting if they need to. We can pause and resume. The most likely reason is for ear equalization, as again, you're going through a lot of pressure changes anytime you do a spacewalk. And so if you've ever flown on an airplane and your ears popped, you've experienced just a little bit of what they might be going through right now. Once we start cabin venting, if we terminate or abort the spacewalk during that venting, we cannot start again. We talked a little bit earlier about how consumables are the thing that really drives you. And for us, we don't have great big airlock with this, with a full station's worth of oxygen and stuff like that. So
suited pre-breathe complete. Confirm pre-rest for venting at pre-breathe complete.
EV1's go. Forward go. Parking down.
Copy, initiating cabin venting.
There we go.
That is great news.
Exciting.
So that breathing of increase, that pre-breathe where they were breathing increased oxygen, we just heard that they're good. They all 4 crew members gave the go. So now we're gonna vent the cabin.
yeah, in total, this will take about 8 minutes, and you can, the graphics you see on your screen, that's live telemetry, everybody. So you can see the pressure inside Dragon starting to tick down. You're going to see the suit pressure tick down as well, is what we're really trying to maintain is a pressure differential. And so with these suits, we're going to be hovering right around 5 or so. You might see about 4.9 to 5.1, 5.2. It'll be about 4.9, and then we'll probably see it go up a little bit when they reinitiate the secondary flow for cooling.
Copy 7.
Yeah, Dan, and you talked about that, about 5 PSI is what the suit will be. We're actually a little bit lower in the EMU.
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about mobility. That difference between we're at 4.2 and they're going to be at 5, it can actually make quite a bit of difference just in how hard it can be to move the suit around, et cetera.
Yeah, this crew got to, and that's something we can simulate, you know, in a vacuum chamber or even just in 14.7. You can simulate that differential pressure. getting calls from the crew. They're monitoring along.
EV1 good.
We're gonna hear that chorus pretty frequently, where you do those kind of frequent, almost like check-ins. And I know you guys did something kind of similar, where like you would have to pause and check your gloves, that kind of stuff.
We did. I will tell you, one of the interesting things watching this live right now, the difference is how quickly the depressurization is happening here versus what my experience was. And so you talked about being able to clear your ears and all that. You're not giving a lot of time for your ears to adapt to that lower pressure. So this seems pretty quick to me.
Yeah, breaking new ground with this, new suits, new operations for everything. We're at about 4.5. We're going to see that tick down. It's going to get down to just under 1, and it's not going to go all the way down. And then what we'll actually see is we've got a capability to open the hatch automatically. We've got a motor in it, but Jared's actually going to unlatch it, and he's going to give it a little tug to kind of break the seal, any of the kind of the stiction in the hatch itself, and that's going to kind of take the capsule down to its final vent before Sarah, who's at the displays, she's going to command the hatch to actually open.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there will be slightly more pressure inside the capsule, so really just helping.
4 psi, seat pressures look good.
SpaceX copies 4.
So Jared really can't open the hatch all in one fluid motion, so we will see him release that pressure slightly before being able to open it completely.
And I think one of the important things, you guys, I think I talked earlier about you put some more restraint devices inside the capsule from when I flew on it, and that's extremely important because there's going to be some force that Jared's going to have to be pulling down on, and he needs to be able to anchor his feet somehow. Otherwise, he's going to pull and it's not going to go anywhere. And so the new restraint devices in there, we're going to see how important that's going to become here when he tries to open that hatch.
Yeah,
that's one of the things. That's why we have Skywalker out there. We've talked about how kind of similar to Gemini when they were first kind of stressing their legs, but important to remember, we've got that 50 or 60 years of spaceflight history that we're able to draw on. These are new suits. This is a new operation. This is to, work out all the kinks and really test this for the first time. But we're going into this with a whole lot more information than they had back then. We know you need handrails or it's going to get real hard real quick.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
We did also hear Dragon's moving into its EVA orientation. Essentially, we're going to point the trunk at the sun under 3 psi.
I think it's also interesting. You notice that the depressurization has slowed down a little bit, right? So as we get to this lower pressure, it's just taking it longer for that remaining little bit of air to go out through the vents.
And EV1, com check.
EV1, loud and clear.
Loud and clear as well.
And also hear the Vox starting to adjust its levels.
Yeah.
That flow of oxygen has not stopped, but the microphone's kind of adjusted and it's getting a little bit clearer. And yeah, keep an ear out. You might hear their voices start to like tenor down a little bit.
I do think that's an important point, Dan, that how important comm is, right? And when it's compromised a little bit just by that extra airflow and the Vox not keeping up with it right away, how challenging it was just to hear those calls, and they can be some pretty important calls.
Of course.
Comm is just critical.
We can see Dragon capsule now approaching close to 2 psia. Like Dan mentioned earlier, that's going to get to just under 1. It's incredible to think that, the Dragon capsule in all of its power and glory and awesomeness, the new capsule is around their bodies, right?
Yeah.
That is what is going to protect them from the vacuum of space. And Just seeing how, even though it's puffed up and we know that it's, holding that pressure, it still looks so cool, for lack of a better word.
EV1's good. EV2's good. Oh, we're good. Supply 2 dead.
Yeah, you really have 4 mini spaceships in there.
Pressure approaching 2 psi.
I guess that means we have 4 aliens in there too.
Yeah, that's right.
Dragon SpaceX, less than 1 psi from hatch operating pressure. We have a TDRS handover in 2 minutes. We are going to wait until after the TDRS handover to command into hatch open prep.
EV1 copy.
And I think you heard that, the TDRS handover. So there's going to be a short period of time there where they're out of comm, and it's kind of interesting because we're at a very critical phase as well. And so you want to make sure you have all the data and the ability to talk to the astronauts before you actually take that next critical step.
We'll see it. We're seeing that pressure continue to tick down. Dragon originally designed to be able to still operate in a vacuum. That was some of the emergency situations I know you trained for, Mike. We did make some modifications to this one to essentially turn Dragon into a functional airlock. We added some additional vent paths. We do use like some of the same ones that you guys use to like pressurize the vestibule and stuff like that. That are actually in the hatch, but we've got an extra one in there to be able to essentially do that depress as quickly as we did. But we're gonna see that get down to a little under 1, and then we're gonna see Jared kind of jump into action. He's gonna unlatch the hatch, and then he's gonna give it a little pull to break the initial stiction, and then we're gonna be able to see Sarah.
1.5 psia. All suits look good.
EV1 copy.
That's one thing to note, that while we have been progressing through this pretty quickly, we did have the capability to pause if any of the 4 crew members needed to, take a moment to, let their ears come to equilibrium or just kind of get comfortable again. We did have that option, but everything has been going really well so far. We haven't had to pause cabin venting.
And if you're just tuning in, heck of a time to do it. We're about
good timing.
A little under 28 minutes into the spacewalk today, which again, that started when we started flowing O2 to the suits of these crew members. That was at 3:12 Pacific, 10:12 UTC. We just heard that Dragon's now in its EVA attitude.
Handover complete.
So again, we've got Dragon's trunk pointing towards the sun.
We are with you on board, watching through the cross view.
That was SpaceX Core Arthur Berrialt, just letting the crew know that where the cameras are on inside and basically which camera is looking at them.
It's so fun to hear Arthur's voice because he was actually a part of our mission as well. In fact, Arthur was an intern. Started out as an intern when we were first starting the training, and so now to see him as a core and is pretty neat.
Very similar to Sarah, who also started as an intern.
Yes, yeah.
All right, we're coming up on 1 psi. You saw the light change a little bit through that window as we're in our EVA position, trunk facing the sun. That's going to help us with thermal inside the capsule and on the crew suits. Also going to make sure we're maintaining that optimal pointing for communications with the TDRS satellites. Once the hatch is open, we're going to disable any of the Draco thrusters that point forward, because you don't want thrusters firing off when a crew member's outside. We're at 1. You can see the suit pressure is ticked down too. There's about 4.7 difference between the suit and the ambient cabin there in Dragon.
That umbilical that you see there, just to the side of Jared, that will continue to flow the air into his suit as well as provide telemetry and communications connection. That's also where we have the safety harness built in as well, so it's able to...
Dragon SpaceX, cabin pressure below hatch operating limit. Stand by for transition to hatch open prep.
Here we go. Mike, did you get to open the hatch?
I did. You did? Yes. Yeah. When you go out as
EVA hatch open front.
Dragon SpaceX, for an EVA hatch open prep. Confirm crew ready to open hatch.
That is great news.
Hatch opening. EV1 good. EV2 good. EV1 good. EV2 good. SpaceX, EV1, we're ready to open the hatch.
SpaceX copies. Dragon, you are go to open hatch.
Go. Excited.
Copy that, SpaceX. Go to open the hatch.
Mike, as you mentioned before, that continuous communication.
The hatch handle.
As you can hear, we do have a crowd gathering outside of Mission Control here in Hawthorne. In their excitement, somebody dropped a cup. We can see our commander, Jared Isaacman, now turning the crank, which allows the that top hatch to open. We'll see him give it a pretty heavy...
EV1, hatch is visually indicating open.
SpaceX copies. Stand by.
Should see him give that hatch a pretty strong jolt to release that stiction. Hatch is now unlatched.
Mike talked about, you see him getting his feet set.
That's right. Dan, you'd asked if I'd gotten open the hatch. So when you go out as EV1, just like Jared here is EV1, that's typically the role for you is to open that hatch. And
you guys have to draw straws, fight over who gets. It's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Now, for those of you that have just recently joined, as you can see, we have successfully depressurized the Dragon capsule down to 0 PSIA. You see that in the bottom left corner of your screen. Our 4 Polaris Dawn crew members have gone through the O2 flow, and we see Commander Jared Isaacman now standing by to open that top hatch. The nose cone is already open. It opened just shortly after the crew got into orbit. So,
Dragon SpaceX target pressure reached.
Copy that, SpaceX. I'm unseating the hatch now.
Jared now opening Dragon resilience into space.
So we saw some motion on the hatch. Again, he's just giving it kind of that initial tug. And then Sarah gets to push the button to swing that hatch open.
Much more movement there on the forward hatch. Must be pretty exciting for Jared because that center part of
Dragon SpaceX, that's a good brace. We're going to have you repeat the operation.
Center of the hatch actually has a window.
SpaceX, the hatch is unseated.
Copy.
Let's give it another pull. The hatch is several inches inflated from the green light.
Copy, we see it.
Looking out that tiny window there in the forward hatch, knowing he is going to have a much bigger window in just minutes.
Dragon SpaceX vent complete. EV1 return to seat.
And EV1 copy, transitioning back under the display.
So again, one of the reasons we had Jared do that was to...
Dragon SpaceX, we're actually watching that hatch. We're going to have you repeat the last operation.
Sounds like they're going to have him repeat them. One of the reasons we're doing that is just to kind of vent any of that residual atmosphere.
And EV1, you are go for manual hatch open.
Sounds like we got our first audible of the day. As we said, that we can open the hatch.
Opening the hatch manually.
We could open the hatch. We could open the hatch automatically, or we can do it manually. And so they just gave Jared the go to open that hatch manually. So we just went out of ground station reach, so we'll get the views back.
Wow.
We'll get the views back real shortly, and then the hatch will get open.
Hopefully we'll see a hatch open.
And hopefully we see it. Yeah, hopefully we see a hatch open.
The hatch is open.
SpaceX copies. Hatch open.
That is fantastic news for those that...
SpaceX EV1, I'm looking at the seals. Initial view looks pretty good. I don't see any bulges or indentations.
Copy on hatch seal report.
Yeah, that seal that you just heard him talking about, it's such a important part for the end of the EVA, right? So that when they close that hatch again, you get a good... Get a good seal of the hatch.
EV2 SpaceX, can you command open forward hatch? This is going to stall it open.
There is our first view of the forward hatch, wide open to space.
Forward hatch. Execute.
If you just jumped in, we are 38 minutes into today's spacewalk, and the hatch is open on Dragon. First view from a helmet cam, looking out.
Dragon SpaceX, we see it stalled. EV1 is go to continue.
That structure you see there is...
Check for egress. EV1 SpaceX EV1, I'm transitioning back from under the displays.
SpaceX copies, we're with you in your helmet cam.
Once again, this helmet cam, that structure we see is the spacewalker. This is Jared now egressing through the forward hatch of Dragon Resilience. These are the first views of the first ever commercial spacewalk.
I'm at the bottom of the mobility aid, progressing.
I have a feeling the crowd is about to go wild.
Good call.
Approaching the top of the mobility aid. SpaceX. Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world. SpaceX. EV1, I'm going to step into test matrix 1. Single-handed mobility demonstration.
Commander Jared Isaacman now emerging
Copy,
from...
we're with you in test matrix 1, watching from the nose cone.
Up, down, left, and right are 3s. Pitch and roll are 3. Yaw is a 2. Switching. Single-handed operations are fine. Static and with dynamic disturbance. Switching to left hand. Up, down, left, and right are 3s, maybe a 2. Pitch is a 4. Roll is a 2. Yaw is a 2.
So these are the suit mobility checks that Jared is performing.
Single-handed operations, dynamic and with disturbance are all adequate. Test matrix 1 complete. HUD check, 5.3 psi, 48% RH, 33.9 Celsius.
SpaceX copies test matrix 1 and HUD readout.
Crew ops check, EV1's good.
EV2's good. Port 1 good. Port 2 good.
Okay, stepping into vertical translation. We're going to start with the horizontal bars. All right, we're going to transition over to vertical. I'd say vertical and horizontal are equally workable, slightly favors horizontal. I'm going to do a max reach. Left hand's at the top of the mobility aid. At the midpoint. You have good video?
We just lost our live video, but stand by 1.
Okay, switching over to max reach, switching to. Copy that, SpaceX. I'm holding up at the max reach.
And EV1, go ahead and continue the operation. We'll let you know we're back on with live video.
Copy that. And for your awareness, max reach, left aid, and the mid bar. Next test matrix 2 is complete. HUD readout, 5.3 psi, 33.9 Celsius, 50% RH.
Copy, test matrix complete and HUD readout.
Crew op check, EV1's good.
EV2's good.
We're good.
Port 2 good.
Stepping into test matrix 3, hands-free demonstration.
EV1 SpaceX for ingress time.
Go, SpaceX.
Recommended ingress time of O2 flow plus 7 minutes.
Copy that. Ingress time, 7 minutes.
And Dragon, we're back on live video from the nose cone.
Copy that, SpaceX. And SpaceX EV1, I would say the hands-free demonstration is very comparable to the trainer. in terms of the foot restraints.
SpaceX copies. And EV1, when you have time, if you'd like to return to the reach demonstration, we'll take a look at that with the live video.
Copy that. Test matrix 3 is complete. The HUD readout is 5.3 psi, 47% RH, 33.8 Celsius, and stepping back into max reach.
Copy test matrix 3.
And as you can see, top of the mobility aid. And let's get a quick crew off check. EV1's good.
EV2's good.
I'm good.
Q2's good.
Copy that. Okay, max reach, whether it's left or right hand, seems to be about the same. Top of the mobility aid, and then the mid-run.
Copy, we see it.
Checking up from the bottom. Any go back, SpaceX?
Negative. We got about 1 minute until EV1 ingress.
Copy that, 1 minute. It's gorgeous.
You wanted to see the time to get the umbilical and then the right foot.
EV1, we're checking out your helmet cam now.
Well, I'm checking out your nose cone right now. And looks pretty good.
Copy, we'll return to nose cone. See you looking at us.
All right, we're coming up about that O2 flow timer time. Crew check for ingress. EV1's good.
EV2's good. Q2's good.
All right. SpaceX EV1. Congrats for the huge team effort that it took to get us to this point. We know it's just the start. And I'm transitioning back into the vehicle. And SpaceX EV1, just taking a quick look here at the hatch seals. From what I can see so far, they look pretty good.
Copy on the hatch seals and stand by for transition to 3-off reset.
Copy that, SpaceX. Good. And EV1 is clear.
All right, so Jared back inside. We heard him going through what's called the test matrix. It's basically just a bunch of maneuvers using different hands, using the foot mobility.
3-off reset is in progress.
Calling out numbers. Right now, though, we're doing, you just heard Arthur call up 3-off reset. So we didn't use any of the forward thrusters while Jared was out there. We're re-enabling them, putting us back in our perfect attitude before Sarah gets ready to go out the door. Fun thing to note, it's still not a perfect vacuum inside a Dragon. It's an open loop system, so oxygen is kind of getting dumped into the cabin as this is going on. So you got a higher pressure in Dragon than you have outside, so we're not worried about thruster pluming.
Yeah, now you mentioned Sarah, just like Jared, she will have 10 to 15 minutes outside, perform those same sets of mobility tests as Jared. Like we heard the Corps do with EV1, they will call out when there's 1 minute remaining.
SpaceX, attitude reset complete. EV2, go for egress.
There's Sarah's clear to proceed.
Copy. Crew check for EV2 egress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Four good.
Port 2 good. EV2 is going to go stand in the door and then step outside.
Now, this test matrix that Jared just performed and the one that Sarah's about to perform, they have both committed to memory in order to execute these. We saw it being done pretty efficiently. I can't believe how quickly that time went by. Mike, we were talking about how your spacewalks were hours, and these guys only have 10 to 15 minutes, and it just like that.
Yeah, it can go pretty quick, and but fortunately...
Test fields look good. I see a little bit of a bulge between 14 and 13.
So you're hearing Sarah call out some more of the seal check there as she's exiting out.
It's reseated.
SpaceX copies that report. Good fix.
So this was something we knew might happen. And Sarah,
between 28 and 27.
Copy.
The crew trained on exactly what to do in this scenario. Just pop it back in.
And
Reseat
one
it.
final between 19 and 18. That might be best reseated with hatch closure.
SpaceX copies. Can you repeat the location?
After EVA complete. Between 19 and 18.
All right, copy. I'll track that and ask again when you're ingress.
Copy. EV2 is proceeding with egress.
Super exciting to see this. Our fellow SpaceXer, Sarah Gillis, now about to make her spacewalk.
EV1, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Like we mentioned, Sarah will be performing the same set of mobility tests. So we will do the same, try to stand by and listen to those comms.
I mean, I said it before, a lot of us work here because we want to do this.
All right, stepping into test matrix 1 for single-handed mobility.
Really cool to see one of our own out there. That's awesome.
And EV2 for awareness, we're watching from the nose cone.
And copy all. I would say in all three translation axes, I'm having certainly cross-coupled movements. Forward, back, I am inducing a bit of a roll. Similarly with left, right, and up, down, a bit of a pitch, but all are achievable. Rating is 3. Yaw is a 3. Roll is a 4. And pitch is a 3. Send source for left hand. Stepping into vertical translation.
SpaceX copies. And EV2 for awareness, we're tracking an ingress time at O2 flow, 5-9 minutes.
Copy, 5-9 minutes. Horizontal bars are definitely preferred. And I'm adequately able to stabilize my body with single-hand disturbances. Steer for both left and right. Stepping into max reach, do you have visual?
Affirm, we have visual on the nose cone.
Copy from bar 4 to bar 2, from top down. And similar reach from bar 2 up to bar 4.
SpaceX copies reach.
And EVA test matrix 1 complete. Seat pressure 5.25, 33.8 Celsius, 37% humidity.
SpaceX copies HUD readout and test matrix 1 complete.
Copy, stepping into test matrix 2.
Like we mentioned before, views going in and out due to those ground station coverage gaps.
Yeah, we comms are
Some of the same.
Comms are through satellites, but we've got ground stations for video on Dragon. As you can see in the tracker, we just flew over New Zealand. We're about to go right over the middle of the Pacific. No ground stations in the middle of the Pacific.
Forward are actually pretty good.
We're hearing the voice of mission specialist Sarah Gillis, our fellow SpaceXer on her spacewalk.
She's got about a minute left, and then she's going to start heading inside.
And SpaceX with a little more work, they can actually get between almost bar 1 and bar 4 on max reach.
SpaceX copies.
And you could see the Earth dark, and we flew into like an
All
orbital.
right, and test matrix 2, trying to combine them, so we'll call that complete. Seat pressure 5.27, 38% humidity, 33.7 Celsius.
SpaceX copies matrix complete and HUD readout.
Stepping into hands-free demo. I'm able to engage and disengage my feet.
Copy that, EV2, and once you are able to engage, disengage, we'll actually have you start ingress. We're just over 5-9 minutes O2 flow.
Copy. With that, EV2 is proceeding with ingress. Pre-check for ingress.
EV1's good.
EV2's good.
Good.
14 good. Copy. Coming on in.
All right, and just like that, Sarah's going to start making her way in.
Are clear.
Check those hatch seals again.
SpaceX copies on striker plates. And EV2, I have one more ask for the hatch, if you can check that out as well when ready to copy.
Ready?
And
copy.
Copy. And EV2, what I'll have you do is, when you ingress, can you get eyes on the hatch handle mechanism and see if the handle has been stowed in the do not stow window, and report if you can see that?
Check it. I think it's just outside.
Copy, just outside. Thank you.
Just outside the range. And for awareness, I do see a couple of those same points bulging again between 12 and 13.
Copy, your go to address.
No, mostly between 12 and 13 right now.
SpaceX copies at 12. If you can, your go to address those.
Copy and worse.
These numbers being called out represent the location around. Yeah, the location around the circular hatch, just identifying where these bulges are. So Sarah's now reseating that seal.
Not quite able to reach the back one, so we'll proceed with clearing for hatch closure.
Just like that, we're already hearing about hatch closure. It's incredible that these two EVAs, just in 2 blinks of the eyes, are...
EV2 is clear of hatch, please.
2 checks.
On your screen there is SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On duty tonight is Arthur Berrialt. This is the voice to the crew throughout their operations. Of course, you know, everyone has to sleep, so we have different shifts for Core. But Mike, your time in Dragon.
Driving close. You're good?
Copy. Deploying handle. Applying force. And closing.
Once we get ground station coverage, again, we will be sure to bring you views within the Dragon capsule. But right now, Sarah is closing the forward hatch.
It sounds like we might give the motor a try.
Confirm the hatch is visually indicating closed.
And hatch is verified latch.
Okay, command and EVA hatch closed. EVA hatch closed. All Dracos enabled.
Dragon SpaceX, we see EVA hatch closed and pressure indicates good hatch seal. Stand by for transition to EVA repress 1.
And EV1 copies. Everyone check secondary O2 valve closed.
Copy.
And then support 1, I'm good. EV1's closed.
EV2's closed.
4-1 closed.
4-2 closed.
So a couple of real big moments right there. Sarah was able to make sure.
SpaceX, we
We're in
copy.
EVA repress 1.
We copy secondary flow is closed and agree. EVA repress 1.
She was able to make sure that the seals were in good spot. We got the hatch closed. You
Okay,
can
crew,
see
we're out of a half PSI for 8.3.
the pressure starting to tick up.
final confirmation. Everyone confirm secondary O2 valves are closed. EV1's closed.
EV2 closed.
Forward closed.
14 closed.
Copy that. And we're through 1 for 8.3.
All right, so each of the crew just closed those secondary O2 valves on their umbilicals. Again, that was primarily for cooling during the spacewalk itself. Suit's still pressurized by that primary, and now we're going to start to see the pressure tick up inside of Dragon. Right after they get the hatch closed, they're able to do kind of an initial pressure check, because again, oxygen, it's an open loop system with these suits still flowing into the cabin. You're able to see positive pressure response showing that the cabin, the hatch was closed and was sealed. We'll still do a leak check on our way kind of back up to our nominal cabin pressure. So we're going to continue ticking up until we're about 8.3 psi, and then we're going to transition into the second phase of our repress. Really the difference between repress 1, repress 2 is how frequently we're injecting atmosphere, as kind of the repress is also pretty unique with Dragon. We're repressurizing with just nitrogen right now, which is a little bit unique. Obviously, you have nitrogen and oxygen in your atmosphere. With this, we have O2 flowing into the cabin through the suits, so we only need to add nitrogen. So we're able to just basically add a bunch of that to really start getting your pressure up. O2 continues to flow into the cabin through the suits, and we're going to continue pressurizing until we're pretty much right back at our 14.
Fan 1 coming on, medium speed.
Right at about our 14 or so PSI. And we're also looking at what the partial pressure of oxygen is, because we want to make sure the crew takes helmets off and everything, that plenty of oxygen in the cabin. And then we're going to change that injection rate to just help with the mixing. Is microgravity, everything's harder, everything's on hard mode. And you don't just have natural convection. So, like, I mean, space station, I think I've heard it a bunch of times, Mike, like you just constant noise of fans.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah, there's, you've got to continually recycle that air. And one, to help get rid of the CO2, right? Because as they're taking in that oxygen, they're breathing out the CO2, and we need to get that out of the system, which is another important reason to have that air constantly circulating.
Yeah. Man, that felt really quick.
It did.
That was really cool to see them outside for the first time. And what they were actually doing out there is a bunch of pretty simple tests as it looked, but like this is just learning how the heck do you move, because like just moving around in microgravity is tough, right?
It is tough.
Dragon SpaceX, we're about 2.5 minutes from Tedra's handover.
EV1 copy. Out of 3.
Yeah, that movement is tough, and there is a big difference just of moving around when you're in your short sleeves like we're inside the capsule, and when you put on that spacesuit, it's much more challenging to move around with that on.
Yeah, and what they were really doing was just kind of like you put your hand on Skywalker, and then you're changing your pitch, you're doing translation up and down and everything. And then the one that I think is kind of cool is max reach, because like just going like that is, not easy.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I thought was interesting is you heard, I think it was Sarah, talk about the horizontal rail versus the vertical and how much easier that was for her to grab onto or utilize versus the vertical one. So simple things like that, for us, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But out there in the vacuum and in the microgravity environment, it does become a much bigger deal.
And Dan and I, we've never been in space, so we certainly appreciate all of your expertise that you'd be able to share with us throughout this morning's operations and contributing your 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was great to be here. Just an incredible moment, not only for the Polaris Dawn, for all of SpaceX, and really for humanity, because it's just one of those small steps that's taken us that much closer to being that interplanetary species. So thank you very much for having me around.
Our pleasure.
Awesome.
You're welcome back anytime.
Excellent. All right.
Good to see you, Hopper.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right, so repress is continuing. We're a little over 4 PSI right now. Again, we're going to keep that going up until we're a little over 8, And then we're going to change our repress rate. We're basically just going to be injecting nitrogen for shorter periods of time. That's just going to help that atmosphere mix as we get the crew kind of back up to their normal cabin atmosphere that they haven't actually been at for the last couple of days, because we started this whole process like right after we got on orbit.
Yeah, it was almost like we launched them and gave them 2 seconds to acclimate and enjoy their cute 0G indicator, and immediately stepped into the pre-breathe in order to prepare for today's activity. And really, like you said, let them acclimate and let their bodies adjust. And, the success of that really was demonstrated today by the fact that we were able to step through all of the steps today without having to take the optional and available breaks to allow the crew members to adjust during... Oh, sorry, I thought we were going to get something there.
Yeah,
that
we're
box
getting
coming in.
The teeter's in and out,
Yeah.
so we'll get it back. But
So yeah, just the fact that the all 4 crew members were able to just go right along and didn't have to pause as the option was available, I think it's a testament to the preparation that they did before and during.
Garage check, EV1 good.
EV2 good.
4 good.
Part 2 good.
just heard a quick check-in from them, so we're going to keep counting the PSI up until we get to about 8. We are going to do another leak check on the way up to our nominal cabin pressure. As you introduce atmosphere, you're introducing temperature changes, not just pressure changes. And so we'll get to a nice, pretty stable point when we're at 8, and then we'll let it hang out there for a couple of minutes. Let the thermals kind of cancel out. That'll take about 5 minutes to do that. This obviously has to be done to make sure we've got a really tight seal with that hatch, as before we let crew get out of their seats, move about the cabin, anything like that, want to make sure Dragon is fully recovered. We just use Dragon as an airlock.
Yeah, and actually the info that you were talking about, you see it there on your screen live with that telemetry there in the bottom left and bottom right hand corners. We can see the Dragon capsule and the suit pressures continuing to rise. It is incredible that we've only been in the EVA for 1 hour and 13 minutes. It flew by so quickly.
6 on cabin pressure, approaching 1 psi on PPO2.
I'm sure for Jared and Sarah, it flew by even quicker.
Yeah. We just heard Jared call down. We're coming up on 1 PSI for PPO2. So what we're really tracking before we give the crew the go to get out of their suits is both the actual, just the straight up, what the absolute pressure is inside, but also what the partial pressure of oxygen is. We want to make sure you don't have a hypoxic environment inside. Basically, you want to get them. They're going to be pretty much right back at the atmosphere that we're walking around in right now before they get their suits off. Our EVA clock's going to continue to count until we hear the call for EVA operations complete from our core Arthur Burial. That's going to come once we are done with the repress operation. We'll see a couple of other things happen with the suits. They'll do kind of a final washout of the pure O2 environment in the suit using nitrox before they get out.
Nitrox being that same air mixture that you have in your scuba tank. If you've got any scuba divers out there, that nitrogen oxygen mixture. Nope, still just air.
They're just going to keep psyching you out. We should hopefully be getting video back from ground stations.
SpaceX, passing 7. Stand by for transition to repress 2 at 8.3.
Okay, copy that, SpaceX. We're following along. Repress 2 at 8.3.
Yeah, so once we transition to repress 2, once we're at about 8.3 PSI, we'll stay there for about 2 minutes. And then once the cabin gets up to 9, we're going to pause the repress and we're going to do a cabin leak check. This is another kind of critical check. We did the initial one after they closed the hatch, where you're able to do just kind of a, let's look at the pressure. Is it increasing at the rate we expect inside Dragon? Yes, it is. And so we were able to confirm that seals and everything looked good. We're going to do another leak check now that we've got more pressure inside Dragon, just to really make sure that we've got a good seal on that hatch before we finish the operation. Coming up on 8.3. We should be hopefully just about a minute and a half or so away from ground station, so might get those views back inside of Dragon.
Yeah, it would be great to see them post EVA. Now, just like when we were depressurizing the capsule, there was the option to pause.
EVA repress 2. Crew ops check. EV1 good. EV1 good. 42 good.
And yeah, that comms that we're hearing.
About a half PSI before we get to the leak check.
Dragon SpaceX with you, monitoring for leak check at 9 PSI.
The continual checks with all 4 crew members to make sure that everyone is good. If the answer to one of those checks was no, there would be an option in this repress sequence to pause, possibly to reduce the, allow for ear pressure equalization. But again, just like the way that we depressurize, now this repress, it seems to be going really smoothly.
Yeah, we're just about at 9. I'm going to say we're almost there, and then it's going to tick up. But we're going to pause at 9. We're going to do another cabin leak check. So we should hear that momentarily.
All right, we're in EVA repress 2, stop.
Dragon SpaceX is with you in EVA repress 2, stop. Waiting 5 minutes for thermal stabilization.
And we're copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking. And crew for your awareness, we do a positive repress rate. We are 30 seconds into the leak check.
Like we mentioned earlier, right now this repress is being done with nitrogen. Once we get
your awareness, PPO2 is 1.35, halfway there.
The suits are still flowing that oxygen, and in a few minutes we will begin to flow. We'll do a flush of nitrox into the suits. All right, we got our views back.
There they are.
It's a little sad to see that forward hatch closed again.
It's got to be really hard when they tell you it's time to go back in.
Yeah.
Just one more minute.
Yep. It reminds me of when I was a kid swimming in the pool. You know, time to get out. Just one more minute.
I mean, it speaks to the professionalism for Jared, for Sarah, for the whole crew, really.
Yeah.
Like that's got to be, this is something they've been training for years. And it's got to be really hard not to go for those, that extra 30 seconds, but they're true professionals.
Yep. They know there's a timeline.
We're 2 minutes into the 8-minute leak check. Crew ops check. Everyone's good. Everyone's good. What's you good? PPO2 just passed 1.5.
We're a couple minutes into our leak check. You're seeing the pressure continue to tick up. We've stopped the nitrogen injections, but again, oxygen coming out of essentially a vent line on those suits, and that is why you're going to continue to see the pressure tick up. You heard Jared call out the PPO2. That's gone up. That's your partial pressure of oxygen. We're looking for that to get to over about 2.6, a little bit higher, and then our final actual just ambient pressure inside Dragon's going to be right around 14.4 or so. And I mean, that's a little bit lower than what we're walking around in now, but if you're at a little higher altitude state in the country or something, that's what you might be sitting in right now in your house. And they haven't been at that pressure since they left her.
Yeah.
But After we get all the way up there, we're going to do kind of a final flush of the suits using that nitrox that Kay was talking about. That takes them out of that pure oxygen environment, and that's one of the final steps before we'll hear that call from Arthur of EVA operations complete, and that's when our clock's going to stop. Our spacewalk did start today at 3:12 a.m. Pacific, 10:12 UTC. It's continuing to tick up. Ours was unique. We talked about it a little bit with Mike. There's different rules for every single spacewalk. It's kind of fun, a little challenging sometimes to track all of them. Even on the space station, there's
We're halfway through the leak check. Still positive research.
we're about halfway through the leak check, so we got about 4-ish minutes left.
We can see the pressure inside Dragon stabilized during this leak check at 9.4. Helps to ensure that that forward hatch is properly sealed and shut. It's very similar to a suit leak check that we do in terms of sustaining a pressure and measuring that pressure over a period of time. Obviously the leak check for the capsule takes a little longer than the individual suit leak checks. But so far, so good. A little bit more than halfway through.
Yeah, bigger volume.
Check evaluation period start 3 minutes.
All right, so we hit.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Hit essentially a thermal stabilization. So again, this is the fun. I think it's chemistry. I'm not sure, but like as you're raising the pressure, you're changing the thermal environment inside the cabin, so temperature goes up. Your temperature goes up, your pressure can go up. So you wait for all of that to kind of equalize, and once that gets at a steady state, you can do a real no-kidding pressure check on this hatch. And so we're underway with that. That's going to take a couple of minutes, and then we'll hear the results, and then look to resume with the repress. It'll slow down a little bit for the remaining of the repress. Kind of going in reverse. When we did the depress, that initial, a lot of that atmosphere was flowing over, and once we got down low, it started to slow.
Really enjoying these in-cabin views. Everyone.
Dragon SpaceX for awareness. This leak check is looking good so far, but we're still going to wait the full 8 minutes.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX. We're tracking.
Sometimes it seems as though the feed freezes just because everybody's relaxing as the.
We're coming up on 7 minutes in the leak check. It's 9.7. PPO2 is at 2.
Enough. The final minute of our leak check. Reports on the ground. Everything's still looking good. Heard Jared report down that partial pressure of oxygen right at about 2. Once that gets to about 2.6, we can essentially stop flow of that pure oxygen to the crew suits. Is like 2.6 is right where we want to keep it when we're at our final pressure.
Dragon SpaceX, successful leak check. Stand by for restart or repress.
Copy that, SpaceX. We're following them.
Great news there. Successful leak check of the cabin.
Refresh 2. All right, crew, we're in EVA refresh 2. As a reminder, EVA refresh 2 will complete when either PPO2 reaches 2.62 or cabin reaches 1 atmosphere. Right now we're coming up on 10 psi for cabin pressure, and PPO2 is 2.2.
It's a really good explainer there from Jared. Again, those are the values we're looking at. We're seeing the PPO2, that partial pressure of oxygen, continue to tick up. Once that gets to about 2.62, we're going to be done flowing that pure oxygen to the suits of the crew. And then eventually we're going to get to 1 atmosphere. It's about 14.4 is our target for today. And then our repress will be complete. So this will go a little bit slower than the initial repress. This could take up to about 20 or 30 minutes, even in some of the times that we simmed it. You don't want to introduce them super quickly to a higher pressure. Anytime you're doing pressure changes, as gradual as you can make it, the better. And that's why we have like the built-in holds that we talked about that the crew can do.
Exactly. These are opportunities for the crew to pause the repress and just allow themselves to come to equilibrium.
Words are
really hard right now.
It is.
And we haven't had to utilize
2.3 PPO2, targeting 2.62. Cabin pressure is at 10.3. If I was a betting man, I'd say we get to the PPO2 threshold first. At that time, O2 will switch to nitrox in the suit.
All right, good news there.
And crew up check, E1 to
Dragon SpaceX, we concur with EV1 call.
Continuing to repress the cabin. We had a successful leak check, and you can follow along with the repress along with the data there at the bottom of your screen. As Jared said, we are targeting about 14 psia for cabin pressure, or when cabin PPO2, that partial pressure for O2, reaches about 2.6. So we are continuing to progress pretty well.
2.4. Cabin's 10.55.
However, as Dan just said, this portion of the repress could take up to 30 minutes, just so that we're allowing the crew to acclimate along with the capsule.
Really cool day so far. It was awesome to see them, out there going through the test matrix. Like, we only got to talk about it a little bit, but just some of the different tests that they were doing while they're out there. This is like fundamental. How do you do a spacewalk? Well, first of all, you use your hands a lot. And how are you going to be able to move around? This is the first time we've ever had the suit in that environment, crew. And so they had basically a checklist of like, these are the things you're going to do. It was, use one hand and wave the other one around and see how well you can stabilize yourself, and then
rate that activity on a scale of 1 to 5 and report it back to. We could hear that a little bit in the activity of, okay, I'm doing this thing. Here's the functionality of that test. Yep. Yeah,
and then doing the reach test, doing the up and down, and they did it at the very end. You saw Jared go hands-free for a second, and that was we had a foot restraint in Skywalker as well. If you've ever watched a spacewalk in the space station, you've seen astronauts in the robotic arm getting flown around with just their feet strapped in. That's a pretty critical tool when you're working in microgravity, because otherwise, you go to swing the hammer and like it swings back at you. So you need something to kind of brace yourself, and a foot restraint can be really important.
Yeah. We also saw the helmet cam getting checked out. That was certainly a highlight for us to see what Jared was seeing, even though at that point I think we were in, the orbital night. But it was many amazing views, and it went by so quickly. Both Jared and
and we're back.
We got views again.
SpaceX is with you. Reminder to start manual timer on nitrox to suits.
Got that, SpaceX. We're standing by. There it is. Clock started. We're on nitrox pursuit. Cabin TPO2 is 2.16. And cabin atmosphere is 11.11.
Well, it might look like the feed is frozen. If you look closely, you can see small micro movements there with fingers and the strap above Anna's shoulder. We, unfortunately, due to ground station coverage, don't have video 100% of the time, even though we wish we did. That would be great. But we can see that Jared and Sarah are not strapped into their seats, of course, because they performed their EVAs, or their spacewalks, extravehicular activities, where Anna and Kid remained in their seats, the window seats, so we can see their safety harnesses still strapped in there. At this point in time, we are continuing with the repressurization of the Dragon capsule, Dragon Resilience. We had a successful leak check.
4-1 good. 4-2 good.
Commander Jared Isaacman continuing to check in with his three fellow.
Check secondary O2 valve open. EV1's open.
EV2's open.
4-1 open. 4-1 open.
4-2 open.
Continuing to repressurize the Dragon capsule. We're targeting about 14.1 psia for the Dragon pressure, which is the telemetry readout in the far bottom left corner of your screen.
Yep, and along with that, we're also tracking the partial pressure of oxygen. So we did hear that they've stopped the flow of pure O2 to the suits, and they've switched over to nitrox. So again, anything that we're flowing into the suits also gets introduced into the cabin atmosphere. It's an open loop system. It's how you essentially maintain pressure in the suit, since you're just constantly flowing that air in there to wash out any carbon dioxide they're exhaling, to actually function as they're cooling. So we're switching over to nitrox just to make sure we maintain kind of the right balance of nitrogen and oxygen in that cabin before they get to go to take their suits off. So we're already at that for the O2. And so we're on nitrox in the suits now, still injecting kind of the pure nitrogen into the cabin itself. And the teams just keep an eye on the O2 levels as we go throughout, and we can adjust our injections as we need to. So we're just kind of hanging out now, waiting until they get to that 14, a little over 14, and then the call we're going to be listening for is going to be EVA operations complete from Arthur.
We're 4 minutes into the O2 walkout. Cabin TPO2 is 2.9. Cabin pressure 12.5.
You can see the Polaris Dawn crew continuing continuing to monitor the repress of the Dragon capsule. On the far left side of your screen is Mission Specialist and Medical Officer Anna Menon. To her left, or our right, is Mission Specialist Sarah Gillis. Both of these wonderful women are our fellow SpaceX employees. So incredible to see them in space doing amazing things.
Yeah, and seeing Sarah get to poke her head outside Dragon, that was, I mean, both of them have trained astronauts. They've basically gotten people ready to go do this, and it's got to just be really special to get up there and do it themselves.
Incredibly. And then to the right of Sarah was Commander Jared Isaacman, who was the who performed the first EVA operation. So Jared went first, and then Sarah after him. And then on the far right-hand side of the capsule, so not this photo, but the live view inside, was Scott Poteet, prefers to go by his call sign Kid. He had the other window seat. Now, if you tuned into the launch phase of Polaris Dawn, you might recall that Scott...
Period. 3 psi. Cabin pressure is 13.3.
Scott is actually our Polaris Dawn pilot, so in order to enable EVA operations, he and Sarah had to swap seats. So Sarah has been keeping the pilot seat warm for Kid.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we only saw Jared and Sarah actually get up and go outside, but all 4 of these crew members did a spacewalk today. All 4 were exposed to the vacuum of space. This is the first time that's ever happened in human history, having 4 people all at the same time.
Yep.
We saw Jared and Sarah go out and do those mobility tests. Anna and Kid, one of their kind of main roles was being the eyes back inside. Very similar if you've ever watched a space station spacewalk, where you let people inside who are able to kind of call out or fly a robotic arm or something. They're just a really important part of the team to make all of this work. Like, no spacewalk doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a vacuum, but like you're never doing it solo. And so they were largely making sure that umbilicals didn't get hung up and keeping eyes on seals and stuff like that for the crew. So
also keeping an eye on the umbilicals in case if it got wrapped around their foot, and just really acting as the assistant coach while the EVAs were underway.
Right, we're coming up on 14 psi. Again, we're already at the oxygen levels in the cabin that we'd look for, and so now we're just waiting until we get to that final pressure.
Technically, the EVA is still underway.
That's right.
We have not yet heard the call out, EVA complete. That will be coming after we get confirmation that the repress.
We're 9 minutes into the O2 washout. Less than 4 minutes remaining. Cabin PPO2 is 3.1. Cabin pressure is coming up on 14.1. I want to review a few things. So when the timer reaches 13 minutes, we're going to shut down the nitrox flow to suit. Then we're going to close secondary O2 valves, and then you can use your manual vent valve in the plate. When your visors, do not disconnect umbilicals. How copy? One's good.
E2's good.
One good.
4-2 good.
Dragon SpaceX, we are less than 2 minutes from a teacher's handover, but copy your call and plan, we concur.
So that was Jared just reminding the rest of the crew that when the timer hits 13 minutes, the order of operations, they have that manual valve there, and this is something that we've seen all morning is continual check-ins.
EVA repress is complete, continuing suit washout.
Copy that, SpaceX research.
Great news there. Confirmation that Dragon repress is now complete.
So right now we're just waiting for that final, we call it the O2 washout. So again, we've been using nitrox instead of the pure oxygen into those suits.
For anyone that has joined recently, unfortunately, you missed most of the fun.
You'll have
I encourage you to rewind. Yep. Go back about an hour. We have had successful completion of both Jared and Sarah's spacewalks. We saw them move through their test matrix and perform the suit mobility tests and the testing of the Skywalker mobility aid located at the top of the Dragon capsule.
1 minute to go.
They moved through it quite quickly, really quite in the blink of an eye. And we've closed the forward hatch. We have repressurized the Dragon capsule, and we're now standing by for really the final operations of the morning. So yeah, unfortunately, if you only recently tuned in, you should definitely rewind and go back. There were some incredible views of the taking place during the EVAs. The crowd that we had in front of Mission Control here in Hawthorne was almost on cue. We're certainly excited, as were we, to see the views of Jared and Sarah emerging from the top of Dragon Resilience. It's been quite a morning, and I can't believe it's already almost 5 a.m. Pacific. We had
there it is, arming, disconnecting nitrox to suit. And yep, please. All right, check secondary O2 valves closed. EV1's closed.
EV2's closed.
4-1 closed.
4-2 closed.
All right, you're going to manually vent down.
Ominously ringing.
Checkbox. Yes, everybody. Whew. Smell that. Space.
Dragon SpaceX, EV operations complete.
And that's...
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same. Nice job for everyone, and everyone at SpaceX who made it possible. All right. Section 9. Turn all seats, push to talk to manual. Armed.
Execute.
Space.
Wow. If you're just joining us, we just heard the call out that EVA operations are complete, which marks the completion.
EV1, comm check on manual push to talk.
Manual push to talk, loud and clear.
All right, that's the crew just switching off from.
We have you loud and clear.
Just switching off from Vox and back onto the push to talk. That silence, really, that's it. That was the first ever commercial spacewalk. We started at 3:12 a.m. Pacific time, which puts us at 1 hour and 46 minutes. The 4 astronauts on board Dragon Resilience performed a suited pre-breathe process to acclimate their bodies for the reduced pressure. After that, the cabin was vented and the hatch door was opened.
And Mission Commander Jared Isaacman, he was the first to exit the spacecraft. He got out there. We saw him right as we were starting to get into that orbital sunset. He was able to complete all of his tasks before he ingressed, got back inside a Dragon. We did that quick attitude adjustment, and then it was SpaceX's own Sarah Gillis, the second to exit the spacecraft, do her task for the EVA. Jared and Sarah got back inside. Everybody's reporting back healthy. We had a pretty smooth and nominal repress. Our mission pilot, Scott Kidd Poteet, and our mission specialist and medical officer, Anna Menon, have been supporting the spacewalk throughout from inside. They went through the same pre-breathe, the same depress process as Jared and Sarah. They did a spacewalk too today, and everybody's reporting back healthy. And just, I'll say it again because all the stat heads out there, I know you guys are tracking, our official start time was 3:12 a.m. Pacific. And our official end was at 4:58 a.m. Pacific. That was 1 hour and 46 minutes of spacewalking time. Next, the crew's going to prepare for post-EVA operations. This is powering down everything on their suit. These were only needed, obviously, while they were in there. They're going to be able to get out of their suits next and kind of start moving around the cabin. They turned the Vox off, so we're not hearing kind of like the constant back and forth anymore. But wow, really cool to see him back inside, EVA complete.
And it's, the work isn't completely done yet. They'll also have to perform some comms checks along with some additional tasks before their seats are rotated back into their pre-EVA position. And all in all, wow, just an incredible view. We've said it already a couple of times before if you're just joining.
Dragon SpaceX will be with you when you're ready in 9.3. Cabin atmosphere is looking pretty good right now, very stable.
Yeah, copy that, SpaceX, and we are ready for your seat rotation.
SpaceX copies will report when
that
initiating.
is incredible news.
Okay. We're moving into sea rotation, so again, after that, the crew will be able to get out of their suits, and that'll be the end of just a really successful day. Hour and 46 minutes of spacewalking today. So the Polaris Dawn crew, they're back in their seats inside Dragon, completed a successful spacewalk, first ever from Dragon. A massive congratulations to the crew, all the teams at SpaceX who made this possible. This was spacewalks are hard, and this was an incredible amount of work over years to get ready. Special thanks to Mike Hopper for being here with us today, sharing some great insights. Always good to have somebody who's done the thing to help you explain what's happening. That was awesome.
Not only having done EVAs himself, but also he's a Dragon rider. He commanded the Crew 1 mission. So it was great to have him. Now, Polaris Dawn is the first mission in the Polaris program that will demonstrate new technologies, conduct extensive research, and ultimately culminate in a flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board. All of this while continuing to raise funds and awareness for important causes here on Earth. Now, you can learn more about the program at polarisprogram.com.
This has been an incredible mission. On day 2, Dragon went to its high apogee point, the highest point in its orbit, more than 1,400 kilometers. That's higher than any Dragon mission to date. This is the farthest from Earth anybody has been since Apollo, and in over 50 years, since 1972. And then today, the crew, first civilians to perform an EVA in space, first one in Dragon.
Yeah, and the crew also the first to test Starlink laser-based communications in space. Excuse me, I got too excited. And of course, we'll also be back to bring you live coverage of Splashdown, which we are hoping to have in a couple of days, obviously weather dependent. But you can stay on top of all of the SpaceX updates by following us on X. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here real soon.